Okay. Can I hear anyone? Hello?
Hi, Deborah.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Deborah.
It always just sounds so quiet. Okay, let's see. Karen's here. Okay, I think we have everyone. I have my agenda. Is everyone ready? Yes, okay. This regular business meeting of the Edmond School District Board of Directors for March 9th, 2021 is called to order. Dr. Balderas, would you please administer the land acknowledgement?
Yes, President Kilgore. We acknowledge the original inhabitants of this place, the Snohomish people and their successors, the Tulalip tribes, who has since time immemorial have taken care of, hunted, fished, and gathered on these lands. We respect their sovereignty, their right to self-determination, and we honor their sacred spiritual connection with the land and water. By acknowledging these homelands, we commit to working with tribal nations to further the education aims they've identified in our classrooms and schools. Thank you, President Kilgore.
Thank you. Next, we have our flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Students, I think next time I'm going to call on you for that. Next, we have our agenda. Would anyone like to move to approve the agenda for tonight?
I move to approve the agenda.
I second it. It's Nancy.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of approving the agenda for tonight's meeting, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? The motion passes. The agenda is approved. Next, we have our school board minutes for the February 16th study session and our February 23rd business meeting. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
I move to approve the minutes for the February 16th and February 23rd meetings.
Ms. Karen, I second that.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes for February 16th and February 23rd meetings. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of approving the school board minutes for the previous two meetings, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? The motion passes. Next, we have our public comments. The public comment item on the agenda is an opportunity for citizens to address the school board. Items brought forward during this portion of the agenda will not be acted upon by the board at this time. Questions may also be referred to the superintendent or staff for examination and later response. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the board is only accepting written comments until further notice. Tonight we have, I believe, 6 comments, so we can easily read all of them within the time frame that we set aside in the meeting. So I'll go ahead and start and read 3, and then somebody else can read 3. The first commenter is Joe Julian, who is writing on the topic of irresponsible endangerment and poor management. I just received an email notifying me that the school schedule is moving up 2 hours from what it's been expected all year. What's been expected. This is unacceptable. We need to match the quote is, we need to match the start times for both in-person and remote due to logistics for launching more in-person opportunities in the hub model for our 3rd through 6th graders, unquote, is a poor excuse. There should not be in-person schooling until at least 80% of the attendees have been inoculated. We require that polio, measles, mumps, etc., that for those diseases. Why would we suddenly decide that acting in the public health is no longer important? We're already dealing with a 1-hour time change. Adding a second hour has a huge impact to children's mental well-being. Time changes are stressful, both mentally and physically. If you really have such a poor ability to create systems that are fair to the majority of students, the least you could do is put off the change until after spring break, so there's some time to adjust. We will be ensuring our and our daughter's health as our primary concern. If this means that she has to take mental health days to deal with the stress this is going to cause, then she'll be taking those days, and I will not accept any damages imposed by the school or district, punitive or otherwise. Our next comment comes from Deborah Comfort, and the topic is busing. Is this institutionalized racism? Let me start by thanking you for your leadership and support during this challenging year. I'd like to talk to you about the implications of our current busing system. I believe our current busing system is detrimental to students and their learning. First of all, the lack of buses has caused 4 different start times for students. While research identifies that elementary students need to start school by 8:30 for optimal learning to happen, 17 of our 20 elementary schools start later than that in a normal year. More importantly, schools starting at 9:20 have been locked into that time for more than 3 decades. These student populations in the district have been disadvantaged for generations. On March 22nd, these families will be made to adjust to a 9:50 start time, another 50 minutes later than the current remote schedule. Spruce and Linwood Elementary have the 4th and 5th highest K-6 populations of color, yet these schools have never in my 32-year career been allowed to have earlier start times. Families speak more than 30 languages and often do not understand changes happening within the school system. Of the 3 early start schools, 2 represent high populations of white students. Students at late start schools miss school to go to the doctor and dental appointments, unlike early start schools where children are able to go after school. So these students miss optimal learning time when they are fresh and then miss more time during the school day for medical reasons. Because buses are not available, late start schools were regularly unable to provide field trips. We couldn't get to early performances, and the later times conflicted with the afternoon bus schedules. Finally, when trying to problem solve how to provide in-person learning during a pandemic, the lack of buses resulted in less in-person class time for students. While teachers wanted students every day for half a day, half the class in the morning, half in the afternoon, this option was never viable due to the lack of buses. In fact, all options revolved around bus availability. We are not providing an equal opportunity for learning. So, is our current busing system an example of or contributing to institutionalized racism? Our next comment comes from Melanie McGowan on the topic is the 2021 to 2022 school year. Please communicate with the community your plans for the upcoming school year. In the absence of any direct input directly from the district or board, the rumors are running rampant. People who have spoken on the topic directly with Dr. Balderas are sharing that a hybrid model is likely in the fall. Is this accurate? I don't know, because no one in a position of authority is sharing any information publicly. I'm thoroughly disappointed that our secondary students are being shut out of desperately needed in-person learning this year, but I understand the decision and am willing to concede that it is a lost year. I am not willing to give up on my kids' educations for yet another year. Part-time education next year is unacceptable. In our experience, that is exactly what this year has been. So please be upfront about where things stand. What is the current thinking? What is needed to make full-time a reality in the fall? And I will pass it on to someone else. Want to read the answer?
I'll take the next two.
Great.
The next one is Carla Mervin. The topic is bringing kids back to campus. What is the board doing to prepare plans for bringing kids back on campus by fall? It is extremely disappointing that the district has already announced middle and high school will not return to campus this year. With all adults being able to receive the COVID vaccine by fall, how is there talk of anything other than full-time attendance for kids on campus by fall? The superintendent has shared that a hybrid model is still in discussion for fall, along with potentially requiring 16 plus to receive kids who are 16 and older to receive vaccine. This is absolutely ridiculous, and I can't help but wonder what actual data is backing up this potential plan. Can you please provide insight into what this district and school board are doing to be proactive versus reactive? Other districts are sadly putting ours to shame, and we are and will continue to lose many students to other districts and private school options if this lack of strategic thinking and transparency continue. And the next one is from Julie Logos. Sorry if I'm saying that wrong. It's on the school reentry plan. She says, my concern is about the timeline and getting students back to school. Now that teachers are getting vaccines, can the process be sped up and get kids back sooner? Mental health needs for older students are skyrocketing and teens are suffering, having now been out of school for a whole year. What is the plan for the fall? Can there be more transparency about the plans that are being made and what the delays are? Parents would like more information and more explanations. When can athletic training resume? Over 500 students were taking advantage of this, and at least it gave them something to do. Other districts and states have all their kids in school. Why is Edmonds taking such a slow approach? Even the hybrid model only provides 2 days of schooling and 3 asynchronous days. This is not enough structure for most kids. Please seriously consider reevaluating the plan for reentry. As soon as public health officials loosen guidelines, there should be a next step taken to get kids and school back to in-person learning. And that seems to be the end of the comments for tonight.
Thank you. Next, we have our consent agenda. Do I hear a motion?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Karen, I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? I just had one question on personnel actions. I think one of the personnel is listed twice, and I didn't know if that was just a mistake or I don't know who's in charge of that. I apologize that it came so late, my question, but.
Director Kilgore, this is Debbie Carter, Executive Director of Human Resources. So if we can connect, and I'll look into that. So if you could connect with me tomorrow, I can do that.
I'd like to just make one comment. I want to really thank the technology department and Chris Bailey for giving background for the information about the bids and proposal and the proposed purchase of internet. I really appreciate that, and I hope all our board reports can be that detailed in terms of really informing the board about the background work that went into making the decision.
Is there any more discussion? Hearing none, may I call for a roll call vote, please? This is to approve the consent agenda.
Director Noble,
Aye.
Director Chase,
Aye.
Director Kadams,
Aye.
Director Kilgore,
Aye. And the motion passes and the consent agenda is approved. Next, we have our reentry update with Dr. Balderas.
Thank you, board. We do have a PowerPoint for the board to review. We can get that up. Thank you so much. And again, we want to make sure we provide a regular update to the board regarding our reentry, and just to ensure that we're able to answer the board's questions, but provide again a real-time understanding of where we're at as a district. And I'm going to turn it over to staff that will, our wonderful staff that will take you through the PowerPoint.
Thank you, Dr. Balderas. This is Dana Gieslin, Assistant Superintendent. And if we could go to the next slide, Sherelle. So we've seen this graphic a few times, and we are still currently in stage 1, but that blue box arrow is going to move to the right very soon. On March 22nd, we move into stage 2, and we're really, really excited to have our second graders and in a hybrid model, and then also our intensive support and our intensive support emotional services programs for kids that are going to come back in stage 2. Any of the self-contained programs in special education that weren't served in stage 1 are back at the elementary level. So that will be on March 22nd. And then on March 29th, first graders and Madrona primary. And then on April 12th, that Monday after spring break, we have our kindergartners back in an AB hybrid model. So I'm looking forward to moving that blue box. It's been a little while, so that'll be great to move it on to stage 2. Next slide, please. A little update, and Debbie Carter is going to help me out here. We fully implemented our stage 1, serving over 150 students in person at 10 sites. And there's a couple of changes to the MOU for stage 2 that, that Debbie's going to speak to. One, I'll speak to, and then Debbie will talk about start times. Is a very exciting change that we made in conjunction with our Edmonds Education Association. So we really appreciate the yieldness of that conversation. It is that we will have our DK and our IS stage 1 classrooms continue to be served in person 4 days a week. So that will be great. And we will continue to have those in-person services for those kiddos. And then Debbie is going to talk about start times.
Right. Thank you, Dana. Debbie Carter, Executive Director for Human Resources. The other change that we have worked through with the association since the approval of the MOU is we have lined up the start times between the in-person start times and the start time for those remaining in remote learning. As we got into implement, we learned that the impact to particularly the late start school remote would be starting before the in-person, and students that were participating in the hub would be impacted by losing some instructional time if they were taking the bus to the hubs. So we had a shared interest in ensuring that all students had access to the full amount of instruction. And as a result, we agreed to adjust the times of all of our remote learners to match the in-person learners. And that impacted the early start and the late start schools.
All right, next slide. And Helen is going to take stage 2.
Good evening. My name is Helen Jung, Assistant Superintendent, and I just want to go over a few things that we're working on in anticipation for our March 22nd launch date of second graders coming back in stage 2. So we have made some staff assignment updates in every elementary school, and all staff are remaining at current sites. This was a goal that we really wanted to maintain. We wanted teachers in specific buildings to serve the kids in that building instead of teacher A going to a different school, even though it's elementary. So we wanted to keep, in essence, schools whole. Yes, there's some shifting between teachers, but to say that we have elementary schools serving their own elementary students is a tremendous, tremendous success. And I just want to thank HR for leading that work and making all the transitions very smooth. So thank you, Debbie and team. Class assignments will be shared with families. I know our families are dying to know who their teacher is, but you'll need to wait until Wednesday, March 10th. And by 3 p.m., schools will be notifying families to let them know who they have as their wonderful teacher to get this milestone going, because this is a huge thing. This is huge and exciting. School and classroom readiness update. That involves just letting all of you know that our schools are getting ready to receive kids, and they've come a long way to make sure that all health guidelines have been followed. I just want to do a special shout out to our principals and our assistant principals, K-12 in our system, who are really working hard to make this happen. They're making arrangements that they would otherwise not have to make, but they show up fully present, and I want to thank each and every school leader in our district. Thank you. Next slide.
Yes, so our daily health attestations are, we have contracted with a partner, Qualtrics, and we're doing this right now for all staff that are on site, and they fill out a health attestation affirming that they're not feeling any symptoms and those kind of things, and that they'll wear a mask at work. So our students do this also, or parents and guardians, in stage 1. And so, of course, we will be doing this as we move into stage 2. It will be daily. This is, we thought, just to be consistent, and even if you have a student who is in stage 2 or attending a hub or athletics or any other in-person opportunities, they will be getting a health attestation, and they have to have that completed prior to being on site. And so if it is a remote day, we still want you to fill the parents or guardians to fill it out, or the student to fill it out and say that they won't be on site that day. By doing it every day, it allows parents to get, and guardians and students to get in the habit of filling it out. And then secondly, some of our things like athletics and activities and hubs and things are different days of the week. And this allows that if something comes up, or let's say we get to a spot where we're able to do some evaluations or assessments for special education, it allows us to have a day that they could come in and they would have the attestation already available. And I also believe that by doing it every day and we get in the habit of that, we'll have less kids arriving at school without the attestation done, which is a significant block to getting in the doors, right? We have to still get it. We have to do a check, or we have to call families. So we're trying to make this as smooth as possible by having it done daily. Those attestations are sent home, and our teams are working to have those translated into 8 languages so that families can get it in their home language, and then also a welcome email to families explaining what the attestation is and how to do it. Each student will have a badge with a QR code that they scan, and each building's doing the entrance just a little bit different, but the basics are a QR code that's scanned and comes up green and allows students to say, yes, they have their attestation done and they can enter the building. And then again, the videos and the directions in several languages to meet the needs of our families. And any questions on that?
Is the attestation totally done online?
Yes. Yes, you can do it, from a computer, from an iPad, from a phone. Most of staff that they are greeted at 4:30 a.m. right now with an attestation. It's the first text in the morning that we get.
So the students can do it on the Chromebook?
They could, yes, they could. And so they could do it there, or by email, or by their cell phone number. So if they put in a cell phone number, it can come to their phone, or for parents or guardians as well.
Dana, thank
So
you.
Dana, go ahead, Karen.
So if a student has either forgotten and shows up to school, can they do their attestation right then?
They could, or we can make, depending on the age of the student, we can make a contact home, and then we can also have a backup of a screener on site to get them in the door. So a variety of things, or if they don't have a QR badge right there, we have another method for that as well. So we've tried to troubleshoot as many things to make it a quick process at the door to get them in. Our kids are pretty incredible at this. And I know that nationwide that once kids know, they know the rules and they know how to do it. The lunch process is similar to this. And so I think that they'll catch on and they're the rock stars at it. Okay.
Dana, this is Nancy. So when you said they are to do this even on remote days, are you talking about only the kids who are doing it in person, for them to do it in person and remote? What about kids who are hub kids only? What about kids who are all remote but maybe do athletics? And what about all remote kids who are doing nothing in person? Like,
that's a great question. So we talked long and hard about this, about getting people access. And so everyone will get the attestation and they can fill it out and saying, I'm not coming on site today. So if people don't fill it out and they aren't attending on site, it's not a huge thing. It's to eliminate that somebody gets to on site and then didn't have access to an attestation because they have a Wednesday that they're coming for maybe a special education evaluation, and then they would have to try to gather one or get one from technology. Somehow we wanted to eliminate that and have access for everyone to get to an attestation. So if they are going to be on site, they have the opportunity to have it filled out and be cleared before they get to a district site. Okay, next slide.
So I'm Lydia Selly, the Executive Director of Business and Finance, representing food services tonight. So this is just a reminder that in addition to our 7-day meal kits that we will continue doing, and that's been a question, students who attend in person have access to free breakfast and lunch. They don't need to fill anything out or sign up for anything. They can certainly choose to bring their own lunches from home. And again, we will continue providing our grab and go meal kits at all our existing sites. On the next slide.
Hello, this is Victor Vergara, Executive Director of Equity and Student Success. And we're gonna give you a little report on our current hubs that are happening right now in our district. So we have the McKinney-Vento e-hub. As you know, we start back in November. Right now, we have currently 57 students enrolled in the program, an average of about 18 to 20 students per site. 33 families, around 33 families accessing the food pantry weekly from staple items like cereal, rice, flour, sugar, etc. 90% of our students are arriving by bus. 100% of them are accessing breakfast, lunch, and or snack from Food and Nutrition Department. And all the students that attend in the hub are seeing improvement and Zoom attendance, homework completion, and all are accessing learning support. And this is based on data, emails that we're getting from teachers and comments. So we're really pleased to share that with all of you board members tonight. Next
Dr.
slide,
Vergara,
yes.
Could I ask about, this is wonderful to see that 57 students are getting this benefit. Are there other students waiting for this, or this has not been an interest expressed by the families? How are we, what about the other families who might be served by this e-hub?
Yeah, at some point we thought about the possibility of expanding because the numbers were growing, but because in part we opened the EL hubs at the secondary schools, we've been able to transfer some of our students to their own schools. So at this point, numbers are really, they're looking really good. And again, a combination between the school hubs and the McKinney-Vento e-hub, I believe we're serving all kids that are needing this support.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. This is Greg Schwab, Assistant Superintendent. And if we could go to the next slide, please. I want to share a couple of data points with you. First, just our current middle school and high school hubs. We've been supporting our students identified as beginner and newcomer English learners since early February. And we're currently seeing approximately 102 total students at our middle schools and high schools. If we go to the next slide, please. So the other thing we've been working on is the continuing to design the targeted hubs at grades 7 through 12, and those are scheduled to begin on Monday, March 29th. So our principals at each of the schools are working on identifying students based on academic and social emotional data. We are all using a common screening tool across all of our schools. And our hope is, based on available certificated subs that we have to support schools, we can begin serving a group of 60 students initially at each of our middle schools and high schools and on those campuses. And the third through sixth grade hubs will begin on Monday, April 12th. The other thing we've been working on is the afternoon in-person enrichment activities. And again, those are scheduled to begin for middle school and high schools beginning on March 29th. And so we have been surveying our teachers to determine what activities they're going to, what activities they will offer. And then our students will be able to sign up for one enrichment activity a week. And then we'll also be offering study halls for students who choose not to do an activity but still want to come in for some kind of support. And I asked schools today, I said, I called a couple of schools and said, so give me an example of what your teachers are planning. And so it's things like band and orchestra and choir, art wants to offer an art lab, there's STEM labs, PE teacher wants to offer a PE outdoor exercise class. There's AP biology test prep. Several of the AP classes are offering test prep sessions. One of our teachers wants to offer a meditation and yoga afternoon session, walking sessions, and lots of science labs where our science teachers can get students in front of them to start fires and do things with chemicals that we're all jealous of. So that's a little bit about the afternoon in-person enrichment activities. Next slide, please. So I also wanted to share.
Greg,
yeah,
this is Nancy. Can I, going back, I'm concerned, it sounds great, but my concern is different things at different schools. So let's say a kid is taking an AP class at one school and that teacher isn't offering test prep, but there's AP test prep for that content being offered at another school. Is there any way to increase the access for things like that because I'm not sure that we're able to get consistency across all the schools because it's dependent on the teachers, right?
Yeah, it is. It is dependent on the teachers and what they're able to, what they will volunteer to offer. That's a great question, and I think we'll have to wait. We'll have to see. I think, obviously, if there were space available and a student that had an interest, we could certainly try to problem solve that. But I think we'll get into that. Using the analogy of building the airplane as it's flying down the runway is probably the best way to describe this. But I think those are the kinds of things that we can certainly try to problem solve. If the student has, wants to do AP environmental science test prep and it's not offered at their school, but it is offered at another school, can we get that student to that school? I think those are things we can sort out.
Thank you, because I think that's really important. I mean, I would put AP as, high priority for these kids, but other things as well. If they want to do STEM, if they want to do science, and that's not being provided, if they want to do art, if they want to do music, any of that, I would like any of our kids who want to have access to that kind of activity after school to have it and not it be dependent on what school they attend.
Yeah, and a lot of that'll too also be will be dependent on space available, because if that afternoon activity fills up with students at that school, then we don't have that, and we just can't, that's one of the things we're just not able to provide everything that we'd love to be able to provide at this time. But again, as we get into it, we'll problem solve those things as best we can. I wanted to share a little bit with you about athletics. Our fall sports began competitions last week. We had games at Edmond Stadium. We had soccer games on Friday night and football games on Saturday. It was a little odd to have football in March, but we'll take it. It was very cool to get some games going again. I wanted to let you know that we are going to be planning senior celebrations at the final home games for each of our seasons, which will allow our senior student athletes to bring their parents or guardians to be recognized with them at the last game. So again, another step toward some more sense of normalcy in this pandemic environment. And again, I wanted to stress that we will be starting up conditioning activities again once we get into the spring sports season in April, simply because we don't have field space or gym space right now because of fall sports, but we will have indoor space to begin conditioning activities again once the spring sports start, because those are all outdoors. And I think that's it. So if I'll stop and see if there are any more questions. All right.
Actually, Sherelle, if you could go back to that screen share, we have one more slide that we want to talk about. We just wanted to put before you some things on vaccines and potential on-site testing. So that we know that through their governor's proclamation and President Biden's directive also, that educators are now, all educators educators P12 have access to vaccines, federally funded vaccines. So we have an agreement with Snohomish County Health and our Snohomish Health District, and we've been working to have on-site availability for that. And so we have Meadowdale High School ready to go once we have the vaccines eligible. It's noteworthy that, as we talked about a little bit before, that there's no first doses of vaccines being delivered to sites in Snohomish County this week. That was straight from Snohomish County Health that we talked with or met with yesterday. So the vaccine availability is a difficult one. So we are ready to go, and we have Meadowdale High School as a site and have the agreements. But we do also have a partnership with Seattle Visiting Nurses, and they are assisting us in this. And then PSE has a partnership with Safeway, and this is how Everett School District was able to get some vaccines immediately to their staff in more of a closed pod or just for their staff. So there's some federal set-asides for school employees. So we anticipate that in the next 2 weeks to be available for our staff also. So we will let our staff know the minute we have that. It would be a site in Everett. We think that Cascade High School will be that site, but we will communicate all of that. Harmony and her team have that communication ready and just need to fill in the details. So the minute we have a site with only, let's say it's 1,200 vaccines, let's say it's 600, whatever it is, they will be turned over, and they will, our staff will be able to sign up specifically for those. Until that happens, though, we are continuing to be committed to getting information out to our staff. A perfect example of that is yesterday, we were Snohomish Health District let us know that there were 1,100 vaccines available, and they let us know the site, and we were able to get those comms out very quickly and before others could sign up. Those are vaccines that are out there for anybody who's eligible. So we had good feedback from that. Our employees were able, many of them were able to make their vaccine appointment and use that to access at least their first dose. So that was exciting. We continue to meet with Snohomish Health District and with Seattle Visiting Nurses. We know that this has been complex. And so it is our goal to get vaccines and communications out to all of our employees continually, and to get anyone who wants to be vaccinated that opportunity to do so. Any questions on that? And then,
if I can have the student reps weigh in on the reentry, if this is appropriate for them to just make any comments, or if they'd like.
Yeah, so Mr. Schwab, can you explain a little more about how like the conditioning is going to work at the same time as the spring sports? So would it be for like the fall sports students, or I mean, I guess anyone?
It could be open to anyone, and I think what you'll see probably for the next round of conditioning will be those sports that are more of the indoor sports, so basketball, and some tennis and other activities and golf that are sports that students could. But again, it would be open to any student who wants to participate. So again, it was just like the conditioning pods were in the fall for prior to starting fall sports. They would be open again. We would just use more of our indoor spaces.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, you're welcome.
This isn't exactly related, but I just wanted to comment on the attestation forms that are required. I'm in cross country right now, and that's going really smoothly right now, actually. If any runners forgot to do it at home, we have a QR code that they can just scan on their phone and do it right there. So thank you for making that so easy.
Kai, I have a question for you actually. How's it going like with the masks and everything with sports?
For cross country in particular, it's definitely difficult to run with masks on. But we're doing it, so it's going well. Thanks for asking.
Other students want to weigh in or ask any questions now? We have a couple more reports as well. And I'll try to remember to invite you to speak up on those topics as well. Okay, go ahead.
So I think first of all, the reentry plan and just like people going back is a very good step in the right direction. I mean, this is going to be a learning curve for all of us and for upcoming times as well. And I think in terms of communication and just like that piece of it, as we have heard in the past couple of minutes with the public comments and things like that, that's going to be increasingly important. The couple of times that I've used the attestation forms, like they've been really helpful and really smooth process when I had to go in for a couple things before. And I think it's just going to be cool to, have people going back in and just experiencing in-person services, and then obviously the activities. Even having a few people in is going to be good, but of course, expanding out like the inequities of, there's no transportation is an issue for those going in for activities, even when they're offered, and there are things like that that definitely need to be considered, and I know that they are being considered, but yeah.
We did have one final thing to add to the reentry, and I'm going to ask Dana. I'm sorry, kind of maybe cut you off before the kids. I apologize for that. So, want to maybe finish up real quick on your last comment?
You bet. Kids are always more important. We have the opportunity to, with the Common Health Project, which is an arm of DOH, to have on-site testing, COVID testing. More to come on this, but we're working with our manager of student health services is working with DOH, and this would be with parent permission and those kind of things. But it would be an opportunity to have COVID testing on site. So if a student was in the containment room presenting with COVID symptoms, it allows for students or staff to then be tested, again, with permission and all of those things, so that they don't have to, if they have symptoms, they don't have to leave the site, then get an appointment, go get tested, and then go home. It just cuts down kind of that middle person. So we're excited about that. And again, we'll get more information about that. Many districts are going to this. It's how we curb it, right? And we get more information. And it's really exciting that in Snohomish County, as of yesterday, we're at 84 positive cases per 100,000. And the rates, you've been watching them as closely as we all have. So it's really trending in the right direction, and people are doing an incredible job of mitigating strategies. So that's exciting. And then we want to know if we have positives so that we can contact trace and do all the things that we've been doing for months here. But we'll keep you posted on that.
Dana?
Yeah.
This is Nancy. That's exciting. I'm wondering, what's the response on getting the test results back for the tests that are going to be used here?
Yeah, it's less than 48 hours is the promise. And so what we know is that's really good, because if we've had people that have presented with symptoms and those kind of things, there were times in this last year that it was, 5 days and 6 days that, you've seen it on the news too. So that 2-day turnaround, somebody presents, we test right then, and they don't have to go out and expose others and things. And then it just is super helpful. There's a pickup actually. So if we'd have the test kits, we don't you don't have to have a licensed nurse, from what I understand, to do it. The test happens, and then we make a call, and it gets picked up at a lab that day if you happen to have one, and then we get there, or the person gets the results.
Thank you.
You bet.
I think it brings to mind something that clicked for me. A lot of people express we get emails every time there's a positive case in any of the schools, and a lot of people have expressed anxiety about those emails, and those have always been a comfort to me, because those emails show me that the system that we have in place is working. And I think it's not clear to everyone that yes, people get COVID in the community, and our job in the school district is to prevent them from giving it to anyone else. And so when I see an email that says someone tested positive for COVID at this school, and there were a couple of close contacts, but they tested negative, that tells me that the system's working. And so far, I think we haven't seen any, at least we have no evidence that there's been any transmission in our facilities. Is that still the case?
That is accurate. Yes, I confirmed that with our manager of student health services, and that is accurate. No evidence that that somebody has contracted from somebody else being positive on site.
So I think that's a real testament to our system and the people who have designed it and put it in place. So thank you.
And I think that's it, unless there's any other questions around reentry or comments from students.
Okay. Next,
Deborah.
Oh, sorry.
Well, this is Nancy. I'm not sure if this is the time to let the public know that there's a strong interest from the board to try to have kids back in school next fall in some form. Certainly, I can speak for myself that there is definitely a strong interest in trying to make this happen, particularly with the understanding that our staff will be vaccinated by then, and perhaps some of our students will be vaccinated by then. So I think it's important for the public to know that that's a strong interest, at least from my perspective, and I think from a few other board members.
Thank you. And I think that is somebody can tell me if I'm wrong, but that's a consensus opinion of the board, where, I in my head am saying all for fall. We should have every kid back in school. I think the strong interest, I agree with you, and that's the consensus opinion of the board, would be that every child and family who wants to be back in school will be back in the first week. And it still may not look like what we'd like it to look like. We still might have some constraints given the public health context. But I think that's the consensus opinion. So thank you. I think this is a good time to say it. Okay, moving on. And so Harmony, in your next communication, you can tell everyone. That's what we
Yes, I'll tell everyone. Well, thank you so much. I think Sherelle's going to pull up some slides for me. Thank you, sir. I think it needs to advance a little. I might have got a little too fancy. And one more. Enter. There you go. So good evening, Board of Directors. My name is Harmony Weinberg, and I am I have the privilege and honor of being the communications manager for the Edmonds School District. And tonight I am so excited. Thank you for giving me a couple minutes to talk about some of the highlights of the communications team. And I say, next slide, Sherelle. Sorry. So far for the 2021 school year, there's definitely more to come. And I just want to say that never has communications ever been more important than it has been in the last 365 days of how much we are sharing with our community. And I just really want to take this time to just thank everyone on my team, and also just for being able to communicate. I think a lot of times it's frustrating for our community who's watching tonight. You know, it's never good enough, but communications is always a challenge. And I just want you to know that the people behind you, behind the district, care so much about sharing information with our community. Our long emails are for a reason, so that we can give you every bit of information we have. And one thing we've learned this past year is that we want to be as transparent and clear as possible with the information we have right now. And as we all look back a year ago, I don't think I thought I'd be sitting in this position and doing the work that we've been doing for a whole year. So I appreciate everyone's work on that and just understanding that. So one way the district has continued to be able to connect with our community during this crazy COVID-19 pandemic is by live streaming on YouTube. As we're doing right now. Hello, everyone in YouTube world. One way, beginning in August of 2020, the district began to host virtual community forums. The communications and technology departments, you could push enter, Sherelle, worked many long hours to get these up and running as we were learning, as we were going. As Greg put it earlier, we were building the plane while we were flying it. We were doing that with technology in totally new ways. And I really want to give a shout out to Amanda Ralston and Chris Bailey for the many hours they worked to be able to live stream and get everything up and going. And just everyone's dedication for all the digital challenges, which now I call them opportunities, that we have faced in the last year. But hey, look where we are all today. We're sitting here, we're doing the work that needs to be done, and communicating and technology is a big part of that. And the community forums were well attended. We had several people, and they were appreciated by our students, staff, and families, as well as people in our community. This was our way of introducing our superintendent in August, who had just started a month before. It was just so critical that we could hold these community forums and have this way of, again, communicating with our community about what was happening. And as we all remember, when Dr. Balderas started, we were all going hybrid. A few weeks later, the world was changing. And so as information was changing, it was so important that we could get in front of our community in this virtual world and be able to update them and give them as much information, again, as we had it. And then next we began to back, Sherelle. We began to live stream school board meetings on YouTube, which again, people are watching right now. And this has been a really great way. And I know the board has appreciated this transparency, especially in this virtual world. And we have been using our social media channels and e-news, which is our bi-weekly district newsletter, to remind the community that they can tune in and learn all about what's happening in the district. You can stream live, and they're available for people to go back and learn about. These board meetings, a lot of information is shared, especially this past year with things changing so much. It's been critical to use this platform and be able to share it with our families who are at home. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm sure they enjoy watching a board meeting while eating popcorn right now. I know they're out there, I'm sure they're doing that. And we've seen a large uptick. I mean, I think, again, evenings in a pre-COVID world could be a challenge for families, kids, homework, all the dinner, all the things. And so now for families to be able to, I know one family last board meeting, they were watching you all as they were eating dinner. So, I mean, it's been a way to bring up conversation, and I think to connect people even more. And I think too, in the last year, there's been a lot of bad, and COVID's definitely been our enemy, but throughout challenges, we do need to find the positive. And I think that this has been an example of something positive, where people who didn't know what a school board was, what you all did, and now they can tune in and get to know the work that's happening in the district. And I think that that's been a really big plus. So next slide. We also had the opportunity to launch Peachjar back in October. We went live on Halloween, and this has been a really huge asset for the district. The cost is free to us. Peachjar provides automated flyer distribution. It's a way for families to get information 24/7. We're not relying on schools having to send out a newsletter with information. It really allows our community members to share their information through Peachjar, and it go directly to our families. And there's just been a lot of positive feedback. I think people, even our community partners, are realizing that they're getting a lot more eyes on their events. It's a lot easier to click a button and sign up for an event or an activity through Peachjar than getting the paper in the backpack that maybe you didn't get in the pre-COVID days with an event that you would have liked to go to that maybe the dog ate it or whatever, I don't know. But yeah, so it's just, we've seen some really great results from this. So, and next slide, Sherelle. And then the other thing that we've been doing since December is we've been having our e-news sent in Spanish. So Spanish is our second most used language amongst our community. And we're so grateful for Victor's new hire, Elizabeth Puga, who is our translation and interpretation coordinator. And so we've been working with her to get our bi-monthly newsletter sent out in Spanish. So we have a really great process right now where we get it out in English on Tuesday, and on Spanish it goes to, so all families get it in English on Tuesday, and then it gets translated, and then on Fridays it goes to the families who have Spanish as their home language. And the turnaround isn't as ideal as we hope, but we're working with Victor and Elizabeth. I know they want to speed it up, but we're just really excited to have a process in place. Sometimes you just have to get going on a new process and get it going, and then we can always speed it up, but it's just been really nice to consistently provide this. And again, I thank you, Dr. Vergara and Elizabeth, has been incredible to work with for our communications team. And as you'll note, I point out a lot of other departments. So communications is kind of, we're like a giant web, and we're connected to everyone. Communications, again, is vital to all of us. And so it's just been really great to have these incredible relationships with all the departments to be able to spread the word and share really important information. Next slide. So one of the other exciting things that we were asked about is Dr. Balderas wanted another way to just be really visual and transparent with our community. That, again, has been our goal. And I say that again because I know communication is always never enough for people, but I just want them to know that, again, we're giving it, we know that, and we're trying to be as transparent as we can. So here we have our COVID-19 dashboard, and communications team has teamed up with technology to use Qualtrics, which is who we use our health attestation form for, to get this data. So every week this is updated on our website, and it provides you with the number of positive cases. And it also, at the top, you'll see the number of attestations. So I know Dana had spoken about this earlier, and even Kai brought it up. So it's really important that everyone sees that up to Monday, because this is updated every Monday, we've had 55,000 attestations filled out. And I think that just shows that staff are doing this daily, whether or not they're in the building or at home. You fill it out, and this will be the same thing for students. So I think this data right here just really speaks to what's happening within our district. So next slide. And this is another, and you can just hit all the buttons to get us to the end of this slide, Sherelle. I don't know what I did. It's fine. So we also launched a new questions feedback form. And this has been, this was something Dr. Balderas had an idea, and he wanted to improve how we could respond to our community. And so it turned out that Qualtrics, who we are already using for our health attestation, had this feature that we were able to just pick up and use. So it hasn't been any additional cost to the district for this program. And so the idea is that on our homepage, you will see a questions feedback form button on your right. You can kind of see it in the screen on the right there. And out pops up this feedback form where you can say the language you want it in. You can select the trending topic. You can choose the specific department. And then you get to say who you are. You can ask a question, you can leave a comment, and then you put your message in and you add your contact information if you want to. But this is, not only is this great for our public to have a one-spot place to enter their question. But then it goes to this, I say magical, Chris Bailey might tell me it's not magic, it's, it's technology, but it goes to this magical dashboard where we as communications team and technology are getting these questions or feedback, and we're able to get them to the right people to answer the question. And the system is tracking, when we got it, how long did it take, who did it go to, just like all that information that's so important to show how we're operating as a system, especially when it comes to communicating with our community. So we just launched this. We're still working out some kinks, but people are using it. And we hope to, again, get just get people more used to using this as the way to contact our district folks. Next slide. And then another exciting thing we're doing is a website refresh. So in 2020, over 2.8 million page views we had to the district website. And you can see on the left there, the most visited sites. But one thing that was interesting is before COVID, we weren't as much focused on the website as we may have been on like a mobile function, because most people were getting their information from their mobile device. Enter COVID-19, and we're all at home. All of our kids are on Chromebooks, and a lot of people are working from home and actually just at their desktop a lot more than out and about. So that's just an interesting note, I think, to point out as we're working on this website refresh. So why a website refresh? So about every 3 years, it's important to go through and look at your web page and the functionality of it. Are people able to find what they need to find? Is the information readily available? And so we're looking to just refresh what we have with the same content manager. So I say that so anyone listening who is one of our 100 website editors in the district, thank you all for your work. We plan not to change how we're working behind the scenes, but we are hoping for a new look that, again, addresses some feedback from our staff and community members that we're gathering right now to better be able to navigate and find the information we need. And it's really important that that we do this refresh and, again, just listen to our community. So we have feedback forms going out right now to our staff, and there's opportunities on the website as well that will be popping up soon when you visit that will say, do you have a comment about our website? Let us know. So Amanda Ralston and several people on technology are working on this right now. So it's very exciting. And then the other part of communications, next slide, is that friend of social media. So I just wanted and keep pushing enter, Sherelle. Again, I don't know what I did. So I want to talk a little bit about how we are increasing content on social media. Again, with COVID, more people are getting their information digitally, and we want to make sure that our community is getting information from us first and foremost in our mission to be as transparent and provide as much information as we have to our community. So here on Twitter, since January, you can see the number of tweets have gone up quite a lot. The tweet impressions have gone up and the profile visits. So we're getting just a lot more people to our Twitter site. Next slide. And again, you can just, that one's all the way. That one's right, Sherelle. Okay, we're good. So then also on Facebook. So in the last month, we've had 84% jump in followers, page views. So again, a lot of this is because of our content. We're trying to increase our storytelling of what the district's doing and sharing information as well. So we've seen a big uptick in that. And again, it's just another way for us to connect with our community. And we're also being really strategic about the 3 different platforms that we currently are using, which are Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and just knowing kind of who the audiences are, understanding that a lot of our students more likely to follow us on Instagram, and that Facebook is definitely more of a parent platform where we get a lot of conversation back and forth, but we can also answer questions on the platforms as well. And Twitter is another way for us to just get that quick information out to our community. Next slide. And then one thing that we wanted to improve was our internal communication. So Dr. Balderas and I were talking about how we can better inform people what communications is sending out. And I said, we have to avoid another spreadsheet, please. I can't do another spreadsheet. And then my team was already using a calendar, a Google Calendar. And so we decided that we would create a Google Calendar that our managers, directors, principals, and cabinet have access to right now. And it's just a way for them to see when we're planning to send out a social media post, when we're planning to send out an email to staff, an email to families, when an e-news is going out, and other different forms of communication. So again, it's that situational awareness for our internal communication is equally as vital as what we share, so that everyone knows what's going on. So next slide. That's it. Thank you so much for giving me a few minutes tonight. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to address them.
Hey, Harmony, it's Nancy. I think you're doing a fabulous job. I'm so thrilled because I think communication is so important. So one of the things that I love is how much more participation and viewership we get in school board meetings. So here's my question. Soon, and I hope like when kids are back in school, we'll be back in person in our school board meetings, right? And so when that happens, which I'm thinking might be the fall, I don't know, we haven't talked about it, but will we be able to continue to stream this? Because first of all, we're going to have safety protocols in place for the public anyway, so that might limit how many people could even come to a board meeting in public. So, you know, we have to take that into account. But just in general, like all of the things you said, they are feeding their kids dinner. It's a lot easier for them to do this. I want that capacity to continue if possible, and will we be able to do that?
Yes, so Dr. Balderas and Chris Bailey and I have been working on that because our superintendent is forward thinking. And so he was already thinking about this and we've already been working on this, but now the cat's out of the bag and we can't surprise you all with our amazing work. Chris Bailey, if
you're surprising us now.
If Chris Bailey's out there listening, sorry, our surprise is ruined. But yes, we are working on that. We have some vendors that we're looking into. The technology is, we're working with Capital Projects because the boardroom was supposed to get some audio updated as part of some of the projects. And so we have all these different things we're working on, but yes, that is the goal. That is the goal, is by the time that you all say we're in person, Chris Bailey and I wave some magic wands and the people at home eating popcorn can continue to eat their popcorn at home. But yes, we want to continue with that transparency. It's important in this world that we're in. So more to come, but yes, we've been meeting regularly about it.
We love your magic wands. You have great magic wands. So I also love that you now have on the website this feedback. The questions and feedback. I'm wondering, is there a way to get a summary of main topics, main questions, something not huge, and I don't want to add to your workload, but for the board to see so that we can see what are the common trends and patterns of the public's questions and interests?
No, absolutely. And I think that's the goal, is to be able to run regular updates with you all. So we did just launch it in February. We're working out with technology and communications again, we're like best friends. We do everything together because without communications, we can't have technology. Without technology, we can't have communications. So that is happening now. But as we figure out the system, you know, a lot of times, this is my philosophy, is like, we just got to get it going and then we'll work it out along the way, because nothing's ever perfect. So we launched it, we got it there, it's working, but there are those kinks that need to be worked out. But then yes, Chris Bailey and I and Amanda, who's been running this project, happy to kind of do an update to the board and walk through it. But I think the goal is that we can provide those updates of a topic so that not only the board, but like communications, Dr. Balderas and cabinet, we can say, okay, this is trending. Are we communicating what we need to? And communications is always changing. There's never a perfect plan because everything changes. So I think this is a great way to keep us on track and to make sure that we're here to serve, right? We're here to serve our community. And so we want to make sure that we're sharing the information with them and that they're getting what they need.
That's great. Thank you. And I have one last, and this is a piece of feedback for me as a user of the website. So I love that you're going to do a website refresh. Something I've had difficulty with over the last year and a half of sort of coming back to the district is the search function. It doesn't work very well for me. It doesn't really take me where I need to go. It doesn't seem as user-friendly as some others. And I'd be happy to talk to you, offline
We've already
about
noted
this.
that because I remember
Okay.
you told me that a little while ago. So Amanda, that is
I
on your
haven't
list.
forgotten. You haven't forgotten.
But yes,
Okay,
that is,
thank
we are
you.
looking into that and trying to, yes. So appreciate that. And if you have more feedback, anyone on the board, let us know. That survey went out to DLT, I think on Monday, a link to that, but happy to get you guys the survey. It's for everyone. We want the community, we want staff. Again, communication is critical. Even when we're all back in person, digital communication is still going to be critical. So we want to make sure we're doing it the best way we can.
Thank you for everything.
Harmony, this is Karen.
Also,
oh, go ahead, Ritika.
go ahead.
Hi, Ritika.
You're good. Okay, hi. So from a student perspective, and also I think this applies in all areas, but that website in the last couple of years, like, oh my gosh, accessibility wise, I think like one of those like super important things. Not even just, I mean, I know like from my point of view, it's obviously, screen reader stuff, and then like for social media, there's, I don't know, context would be like when pictures are being posted, or when things are being posted on Instagram and Twitter and all that stuff. There's a feature called alt text that basically you just you put that on there, and it's becoming more and more common, but that like things like that. And then just thinking about closed captioning, audio description on videos, just things like that I think are always extremely important. And I did want to bring that up because as we go through this process of like redoing the website, and really every time we do something like this, it's a fresh start. It's time to improve what was already working, but not as well as it could. And yeah, just wanted to bring that up.
No, Ritika, that's so great. I'm really glad you brought that up because accessibility is huge. And I know that Amanda and Chris Bailey are looking into an additional program that would screen for accessibility. Right now, when any one of those 100 website editors throughout the district updates something, it has to be approved by someone in technology or communications. And that is for accessibility, because so there is definitely these checkpoints that we are making sure as best we can that what people are putting in have the alt text. But just know that we're trying to make that even better. And then the goal is that we get this new system that takes that away. So then not only does that have a better look at the accessibility, it also will free up staff time waiting for a website approval that we get quite a bit. So, but I appreciate you saying that. That is very important. And as far as the closed captioning, we've definitely tried to increase that this past year, and your perspective has been huge and opened our the way we're handling that. And I think YouTube is we're starting to do it in ways that we can, but we continue want to improve that. So thank you, Ritika. I appreciate that.
I think that you're doing a great job. You've got it covered. I think Ritika expressed some of the things I wanted to share on your ability to leverage new technologies and increase the accessibility of all the communications is very appreciated. And I really appreciate a lot of the Twitter posts because they're really easy to share. So thank you.
You're welcome.
I wonder if I could, before we let you go, I could ask the student advisors to talk a little bit about what the best way to reach you is. Because from time to time we get emails or communication from other students who say, I don't know about this happening, or I'm the last person to know, or I read it in the local paper or something, or my mom told me. So what are the best ways for you to get the information you need?
I think personally for me, my school email is, I constantly check it every day, like multiple times. But for other students, they prioritize, since kids are always on their phone, I think maybe very important things would be via like a text message alert, or even on Instagram, social media and whatnot. Like a lot of kids are constantly on it, so if the district posts about like certain events, they'll see it on their timeline, and I think that'd be more accessible.
No, I appreciate you saying that, Cerelia, because one of the things that we have done is when we send a family communication out with some of these big updates, we've been including secondary students, because a lot of, we want to be just as informative to you all as we are to families. And also a lot of students are their translators for their or interpreters for their families. So that's been a really a piece that we've been really strategically trying to do. But I think that what you said, those are great other ways to improve as well.
I think Kai can attest to this too. Like, in terms of how students can reach information, as we like attempt to do our job as well as we can in terms of being the liaison between the school board and the information that we have and our students. Our at least at the secondary level, our high school accounts, like our official high school accounts, and we at Mount Lake Terrace at least we have the MTHS Hawkeye, www.thehawkeye.org, where we attempt to, keep communication as open as we can from the high school lens. And so, those accounts, our high school official accounts, our student newspaper, which is just as much a professional and official part of our community. Those are really good ways to get information. And I mean, reaching out to us, there's we're always here to kind of relay the information that we can. And if we don't know, then we know where we can get the information. So I think that's, yeah.
Appreciate that.
To add on to that, social media has played a really big role in communicating info, especially like taking questions, because I run the school one, and we get a lot of questions, so I try to answer those as best as I can. But yeah, for me, social media is the
And
best.
Kai, are you mainly, what accounts are you running? Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or?
Instagram and Twitter.
Okay. See, parents
Kai, don't we have a
listening,
Facebook account
Facebook's not where the kids are anymore. It's just a little word of advice.
Yeah, no, I mean, parents are on Facebook too. And I think Mount Lake Terrace does have a Facebook thing, which actually gets more alumni visits than anything else. But yeah, Instagram is kind of where it's at with our generation,
With
and then
the cool
Twitter's just
kids.
kind of no man's land.
Thank you. Isabella, did you have something?
Yeah, I agree with everything the other student advisor said. And I have a question. I'm not sure if you mentioned this before, but is every single piece of information being sent out in all like different languages?
As best as we can. I mean, that is a priority. That is something we're working on with Dr. Vergara and his team. English and Spanish are very much a priority. And again, I thank Elizabeth on Dr. Vergara's team for quick turnarounds when as we've talked about, information changes every second. And so to just have someone translate that right away, Dr. Vergara and his team have done that. So yes, Isabella, we're continuing to improve that process, and Dr. Vergara is working on that so that, again, we're starting the process. We've got the train going, but I know his goals are to have this, so we translate it in the top 7 languages as quickly as we can. As humanly possible to do the brain work, but not like a week. So I don't know, Dr. Vergara, if you wanted to add anything to that.
Yeah, I just thank you, Harmony, and thanks to the communication department also for the collaboration. And yes, our first step is to be able to translate everything in 7 languages, and the top 7 languages at the district level, and also identify and translate every document at the school level in the top 3 languages. Okay, so that is our first step. So it's not the last one, it's the first one. So we're shooting hopefully soon to be able to do that in a regular and timely manner. Thank you.
And when you translate these things, does it go through like a website, or is it always a person translating them?
We have a set of people doing this work for us, and actually we've been hiring on-call translators and interpreters. So we're going to have a pool within our district that is going to help us with this. So far, I believe we have about 15 interpreters that they speak about 12 different languages. And actually, I had the privilege of meeting with many of them earlier today, and I was really fascinated to see the diversity and how many languages they speak, and they're really excited to support our district.
Great. Mandana, did you have anything?
No, I think my fellow student advisors covered it all. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Thank you all. You guys are my heroes. So appreciate all that you're doing and the time you're giving to the district.
Thanks, Harmony. That means I just need to get off MySpace account, right?
Yes, Justin Timberlake, I think, sold it, Dr. Baldera. So it's.
Well, thank you, everyone. Excuse me. Next, moving on, we have our business and finance report. Lydia Selly.
Thank you, Director Kilgore. So as a reminder, our fiscal year starts September 1st and ends August 31st. So as of March 1st, we are halfway through the fiscal year, which is hard to believe. Usually at this meeting, we've kind of hit our stride. Unfortunately, in pandemic, that's another thing that's much more complicated this year. At this time of year, the legislature is hard at work, and historically, we're looking forward, but currently, we're looking in the present as well as forward. So I'll talk a little bit about that on the next slide. So in January, OSPI balances actual revenues to basically our student enrollment. So from September through December, they've been funding us based on our budget. Of course, our students didn't come in at the levels that we had originally planned on due to the pandemic. So they have reduced our state apportionment dollars, with the exception of transportation, which is going to affect the February report. So back in 1920, we received $15.3 million of state transportation dollars. We were predicted to receive 13.7 million this year, which was already a reduction of 1.6 million for some post-McCleary reasons, really. And our February apportionment came in at 4.2 million. So we are waiting on a bill in the legislative session, House Bill 5128, which will indicate if they're going to provide any support for that revenue shortfall. So the fund balance projections, which I'll get to, assume that transportation revenues and expenditures are balanced. And that was before we received the February apportionment news. So that will need to be adjusted in the expense report. So next slide. So I think you can see graphically on the revenues. Fortunately for us, as far as cash flow, our property taxes are coming in as they have in prior years. Last year was an exception with some of the property taxes delayed. That isn't occurring this year. So we are on target for that. You can see state general. The red line is the prior year. The blue line is the current year. They're almost identical. And of course, we are anticipating that state general apportionment would be higher this year. State special, that dip in the blue line is predominantly couple reasons. The main one is transportation. Also, special education is lower than projected because enrollment is also coming in lower. You can also see the effects of the pandemic on the expenditure graphs. Certificated salaries are usually set by May. Classified, due to our enrollment downturn, we're not filling vacancies as we normally would in a typical year. Okay, next slide. Basically, the only thing I'd like to point out is on federal, you can see the little purple blue-purple graph is higher than it's been in previous years, and that is the effect of what's known as CARES, also known as ESSER-1. And again, we will be receiving an ESSER-2 allocation that will be spent between almost now and fall of 2023 is when we have to spend it. Okay, and the next slide. And one more slide. So the good news is, again, we're looking at the blue line. The dark blue line is where we're currently projecting our fund balance to end. Again, it is lower than last year, as we've expected, based on our enrollment. But we are still holding above the 18-19 school year, which is good news. And again, in February, we'll assess the impacts on transportation and see if any changes need. And that is all I have for January, unless there's any questions.
You did have the one last slide with enrollment showing it continues to go down.
My apologies, thank you. So Sherelle, if you could go one more slide. So enrollment is relatively flat since November. It's about 27 students below where it was in December. So a slow decrease, not quite as concerning as the drop between September and October. And thank you, Gary.
Other questions or comments from the board? Well, thank you, Lydia. We look forward with anticipation to what the state is going to do for us to help make us whole and help us educate our kids. I wonder if I could ask that we take a 5-minute recess for a bio break, and we could return at 8:01. Thank you, Lydia.
What do you think is happening, big sis? This is a D&D adventure. And what would a D&D adventure be if you didn't get to fight a dragon?
Tilly? Calliope? Orcus? Anyone?
Final fight. Agnes versus Tiamat.
Oh God. I attack?
No damage.
Attack!
No damage.
Attack!
Nothing.
What?
Your character's not strong enough. There's nothing you can do to beat her.
No, you're wrong.
This isn't going to work.
I didn't come all this way to fail her again. I'm getting my sister's soul back, and there's nothing in this world, in this universe, that's gonna stop me. She's my sister, and I love her. So roll that dice. Keep rolling it. Because this monster, I'm killing it.
If that's what you want.
I attack.
The attack lands.
I attack again.
That attack also lands.
I keep attacking. attacking again and again and again.
This is crazy. These are all critical hits you're landing. I've never seen anything like this. You look up and you see a weak spot on Tiamat's belly. The same one the real Tilius left all of those years ago.
I plunged my sword into Tiamat's guts.
You did it. Holy crap, you actually did it. Tiamat has fallen. You have won back the lost soul of Athens.
Good job, sis.
Tilly?
Did you have fun?
What?
Did you have fun? That's the point in all this. Did you have fun? Good.
Wait, but you're dead. You're gone.
I know, but the story still remains. And isn't that essentially all life is? Just a collection of stories? This was one of mine.
But not just a story that I experienced, like a party or a dance. It's something I dreamt. Something far more personal and important than happenstance. The story came from my soul, and by breathing life into it, who knows?
Maybe a bit of my soul will get the chance to breathe for a moment, once again.
I
I love you, my sister.
I'm sorry I can't be there.
I have no idea why you had to experience this adventure alone and without me, but I hope it gave you a glimpse into me the way that I wanted you to see me.
Strong.
Powerful. The magical.
Congratulations. You have completed the quest for the lost soul of Athens.
I love our intermission entertainment. Okay. Director Chase. Oh, you're here. Good. Okay. Meeting is back in session. Moving on to unfinished business. Our first item is a second reading to adopt revised policy 3520, student fees, fines, or charges. Do I hear a motion?
I move to approve.
I second it. Nancy?
It's been moved and seconded to approve, to adopt revised policy 3520. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll go ahead and call for a roll call vote, please.
Director Noble,
Aye.
Director Chase,
Aye.
Director Kadams,
Aye.
Director Kilgore,
Aye, and the motion passes and the policy is approved, is adopted. Next, we have a second reading to adopt revised policy 3120, student enrollment. Do I hear a motion?
I move to approve.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt revised policy 3120. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Director Noble,
Aye.
Director Chase,
Aye.
Director Kadams,
Aye.
Director Kilgore,
Aye. And the motion passes and the revised policy 3120 is adopted. Next, we have a second reading to adopt revised policy 3140, release of students. Is there a motion?
I move to approve.
This is Nancy. I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt revised policy 3140. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Director Noble,
Aye.
Director Chase,
Aye.
Director Kadams,
Aye.
Director Kilgore,
Aye. And the motion passes and 3140 is adopted. Next, we have a second reading to adopt new policy 3141, non-resident students. Is there a motion?
I move to approve.
I second it.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt new policy 3141. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll go ahead and call for a roll call vote, please.
Director Noble,
Aye.
Director Chase,
Aye.
Director Kadams,
Aye.
Director Kilgore,
Aye. And the motion passes. And we've adopted 3141, new policy. The next item is a second reading to adopt, don't move it. Second reading to adopt new policy 2411, certificate of educational competency. Is there a motion?
Deborah, I think you skipped one. I think you skipped 3245, students and telecommunications devices.
Okay. No, I'm
Oh, wait.
and the one before that.
Sorry.
2411.
You're right on target. You're doing great.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
I move to approve.
I second it.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt new policy 2411. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Director Noble,
Aye.
Director Chase,
Aye.
Director Kadams,
Aye.
Director Kilgore,
Aye. And the motion passes and 2411 is adopted. Next, we have the second reading to adopt revised policy 3245, student and telecommunications devices. Is there a motion?
I move to approve.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt revised policy 3245. Is there any discussion?
I just wanted to thank for cleaning it up and getting the definition of telecommunication devices and the wording consistent throughout the policy. Thank you.
Okay. No further discussion. Let's go ahead and have a roll call vote, please.
Director Noble,
Aye.
Director Chase,
Aye.
Director Kadams,
Aye.
Director Kilgore,
Aye. And the motion passes and we've adopted revised policy 3245. Next, we have a second reading to adopt revised policy 2413, equivalency credit opportunities. Is there a motion?
Move to approve. This is Karen.
I'll second it. Nancy.
It's been moved and seconded to I lost my place, adopt revised policy 2413. Is there any discussion?
So Greg and I, Mr. Schwab and I talked about the use of the language in terms of state standards versus essential academic learning requirements and grade level expectations. And Greg, can I ask for you to share, you did some research on this and you had a suggestion?
Yeah, absolutely. So I did look up the the relevant WACs and RCWs that this policy that are referenced in this policy, and the WACs and RCWs do make reference to grade level expectations and essential academic learning requirements. And I think this is a case where the law hasn't yet caught up with actual practice. And so I did also do some research into several districts around us to see what they're doing with their board policy 2413. And again, I found that they're all over the map. Some use the language that are referenced in the RCWs and the WACs, and others didn't. So I did find language that I would recommend that we use, and we change grade level expectations and essential academic learning requirements to just simply say that we will align with the state's K-12 learning standards. That keeps it simple and is broad enough that I think will help us as these things will probably change once we've all retired and moved on. So, but it does create the flexibility for us to keep it a little more generic. So I would recommend that we, instead of using essential academic learning requirements and grade level standards, that we just simply say align with the state's K-12 learning standards.
And I would agree with Greg on this. I think keeping it generic will help it stay timely and cover all the subjects. So I don't know how we handle this procedurally now, Deborah, because this is a second reading.
I think it's a small enough
You can revise it
change.
between them.
I think it's a small enough change that we could just go ahead and approve the revised revision. Is that true?
I've
We've
seen them
fre-
brought back for a
Balderas?
third reading.
We
Oh, okay.
frequently revised them between the first and second reading. For instance, the communication one was revised between the first and second reading. It almost always happens. And so unless it's a total rewrite of it, I think just 2 readings is required.
Yes, and we can just add the
Yeah.
amendment as stated by Director Kadams to this, if the board here agrees to that, then approve this.
Okay. Cheryl, can I have the, thank you, the agenda again? Okay, so is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'd like to call for a roll call vote on revised policy 2413 with the slight change that we've just made.
Director Noble,
Aye.
Director Chase,
Aye.
Director Kadams,
Aye.
Director Kilgore,
Aye, and the motion passes and the policy is adopted. Next, we have a second reading to adopt revised policy 3122, excused and unexcused absences. Is there a motion?
I move to approve. It's Nancy.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt revised policy 3122. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Director Noble,
Aye.
Director Chase,
Aye.
Director Kadams,
Aye.
Director Kilgore,
Aye. And the motion passes and the policy is adopted. Moving on to new business. Our first item is a single reading to approve the 2021-2022 Snohomish County Detention Center Education Program interlocal agreement. Is there a motion?
I move to approve.
I second it.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the interlocal agreement with Snohomish County Detention Center Education Program. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a roll call vote, please.
Director Noble,
Oh,
Director Noble,
you're muted.
Aye.
Director Chase,
Aye.
Director Kadams,
Aye.
Director Kilgore,
Aye. And the motion passes. The agreement is approved. The second item of new business, a first reading with no action to adopt revised policy 3143, notification and dissemination of information about student offenses and notification of threats of violence or harm. Is there any discussion or are there any questions?
I think this is one I have some comments on. This is 3143, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there are a couple of things that I wondered about that had to do with the assignment of kids to schools or classrooms when they are the victims of a crime. And so and I'm looking at this so that I can be clear, and wait, I want to find the one that's final, not the redlined one, sorry. So under number 4, I am wondering why in this case, a student who's been the victim of a major crime, but it's not from a sex offender, that while it says the student who committed the crime won't be assigned to the same class, or if it's been against a staff member, they wouldn't be assigned to that teacher. It seems to me that it should be the same assignment stipulation that we have here for when there was a sex offense done. And my thinking is this: as the parent of a child who was bullied, he told me those things don't happen in a classroom. Intimidation doesn't happen in the classroom. It happens in hallways. It happens in the cafeteria. It happens in bathrooms. It happens on the playground, parking lot. And it seems to me that the crimes that are described here under number 4, if I were a staff person where a kid had committed something like this against me, or if I were a kid and another kid had committed this against me, I wouldn't want to see that kid at all in the school. So my feeling is, I think the same assignment of the kid should be at another school who committed this crime than the victim should be applied to these crimes as well. So that's one comment I have. Another one is in the second case, it doesn't talk about staff. That I think it should apply to staff as well. Sorry, it's like all over the board. If there were a staff member who was the victim of a sex offense, that kid ought not to be, the kid who committed it should not be assigned to the school that teacher or staff member is in. That's my second concern. And the third thing, and I don't know if one of our policies could cover this, but I know that there are situations in which a parent of a student might have committed a crime against a staff member on school property. And if that happened, it seems to me that the student of that parent who committed that assault or similar kind of offense on a staff member should be put at another school, so that that staff member wouldn't have to see that parent under any circumstances after that crime occurred. Have I made any sense in all of this? Okay, so there were 3 parts to this that I felt needed to be more consistent and more inclusive of protecting the victim from interactions with the student who committed the crime.
So I'll see what I can do to try to explain this a little bit. So the language that we see in 4 really does come out of the statute, and so the statute really does define certain offenses, which then provide school with certain actions they can take to limit classroom contact and those kinds of things. So I think what you're talking about goes above and beyond what the statute requires.
Yes, I am actually saying I'd like to see the district do more. I figured this was like minimum requirement, but to me, it's not good enough. I don't think it's as protective of the victims as it should be.
So legally, there's certain things that we can't do, Director Kadams.
Okay.
I think what we can do is go back and research it and maybe even ask legal what legally we can do, because I think you're asking for some things that may be beyond our what we can do as a system. For example, the movement of a student for the actions of a parent, that may actually not be doable for us to do, because again, we can't blame the student for the parent's actions. So
well, or maybe we could give priority to that staff member being allowed to be reassigned to another school, so that it's not the student or being transferred because of the action of the parent, but it's still protection of our staff member.
Could I just that particular one, I agreed with the other ones that we should really kind of look at those. That particular one, though, I'm thinking if a parent commits a crime on a campus, they can be banned from the campus, can't they?
Yes.
So that might not be the issue. I don't think we can really. I would hope that staff would not hold it against the child for a parent's action. But if the parent's not on the campus, then I'm not sure what the.
I'm not thinking that it would be the staff person holding it against the kid. I'm thinking it's the staff person. Let's say it's someone who works in the office and a parent assaults the office person because they're on drugs or crazy or something. And I'm thinking of protecting that staff person from having to see that parent when they come for parent-teacher conferences or to drop off their kid or pick them up. I'm thinking about, in this case, protecting the staff. But I understand it might not be within our scope as a school district to be able to do that. Or maybe there's a way we can protect our staff in another way. As I was reading this and thinking about it, I was thinking about if I were in that situation, how would I feel if I had to face that person? And if a student, I think, is going to a school, I don't know, can we even like say that parent isn't allowed on campus if they're the custodial parent of that kid? I'm not sure. These were just thoughts of mine that I was hoping we could discuss and look into, because I don't know enough. I'm just trying to put myself in the position of the victim.
We can definitely do some research. I'll work with our legal and get some information and bring that back.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm glad you understood what I was saying, because it sounded really convoluted.
It made perfect sense.
Thank you.
And I also wanted to just reiterate that I do agree with the spirit of your comments on the first 2 items, that I've known too many kids who were bullied, who themselves had to switch schools, and that's not how it should go. It shouldn't, the burden shouldn't be on them. So if there's a way that we can do more for kids in that respect, I'd be all for it.
Right. And we don't even know how many kids don't change schools, but are just so incredibly uncomfortable that they might run into that kid in the hall, or that kid seeks them out in the hall, or they shouldn't have to be uncomfortable with the possibility of somebody who's committed a crime against them being in the same building. There are too many interactions among kids across classrooms.
Any other discussion about this policy? So it's not, I don't know, unless if it comes back that everything in the policy is is within the legal bounds of what we're able to do, then we could have a second reading and pass it next time. But it may be that we need to have a second reading and then a third reading. So that's a possibility in the future that, yeah, okay. Okay, moving on then to a first reading with no action to adopt new policy 3225, school-based threat assessment. Is there any discussion or questions? I had one comment and one question. The one comment was under the threat assessment team. One of the potential members would be a member of law enforcement. And since we don't have school resource officers at this time, maybe that shouldn't be in the policy. And can we think of other ways to, because I do think law enforcement should be involved in this. How else would we do that?
Yeah. So the policy really reflects our current practice that we use a threat assessment model out of the Salem-Keizer School District, and it does identify a threat assessment team, which does include law enforcement. And so in those situations, prior to having school resource officers, we were able to reach out to our local law enforcement jurisdictions and if they were able to, they would provide us with that. They could provide us with that kind of support to have an officer attend a threat assessment team meeting. So I think it's important to keep that in there so that we have that. I think that's
no, I'm not suggesting we take that out. I'm just saying it says something like, for example, a school resource officer.
Yeah,
since we don't have that, we could put, for example, our school liaison officer. Or
exactly, we can change that language. I see what you're saying. Yes.
So that was my one comment. My question about the threat assessment team is, are these teams assembled on sort of a case by case, like as needed basis, or are they a standing team at every school, or
so each
what kinds of things do they work on?
Yeah, so each building has a building level, we call them a level 1 team, which is the building level team, and that's comprised of the administrator, usually the counselor, school psychologist, other district staff as needed, and that's the team that assesses the potential threat at the building level. And then we also have a district team of staff working out of the student services office that are trained in level 2 in the level 2 process. And so that's our district level team, and that's a standing team. But each building is responsible when they have to conduct a level 1 threat assessment. Each building is responsible for assembling their team, and it's really, we've identified who are the members of the team, and they assemble as needed. When a situation presents itself where there is a threat that they need to investigate further.
Okay, and so I guess what I was looking at was the previous policy that we looked at, which had to do with notifications of threats or students who might present a threat. Where is the policy? And maybe it's obvious and I just didn't see it myself. It's possible. Where's the policy for developing a plan? Is that this team that develops a plan for that student? Say a student comes back and they've got that record. I assume that the school develops a plan for, how that student would be supervised.
Right. So one of the outcomes of the threat assessment process is to develop a plan for that student. And so it's not just, we don't just look at the threat, but we also say what are the supports that we need to put in place to help this student. And that's regardless of whether the threat can be resolved at the building level or if we need to involve a level 2 team. But the plan is always to develop a plan for that student to help support that student in the school. There are many situations where there's a threat that happens It may be something that happens in the community, for example, that doesn't directly involve the school, but because of the nature of the threat in the community, it does warrant, investigating it further to find out if there is a cause for concern. So there are a lot of situations that schools deal with threat assessments that really result in developing plans to help support that student.
Okay, so this team not only does, they do the plan to support those students who have a history that might indicate they might be a danger or in danger.
Yes.
And then they also assess threats, larger, less concrete threats in the community, or say social media threats, or something.
Yeah, all of the above. I mean, it really is a situation where, if we have a situation that we believe is something that poses a threat, then this team, there's a consultation that happens, and there's a determination about, is this something that we need to bring to a threat assessment? And so that's the process. And then if it's determined that we do, then that team goes forward and conducts the threat assessment.
Thank you.
President Kilgore, I think maybe in board leadership, we can discuss if the board wants to really have a more of a deeper dive in terms of threat assessments, because there's 3 levels of threat assessment: level 1, 2, and 3. And Dr. Schwab mentioned earlier just making sure that the board fully understands how this works in action. Maybe beneficial.
I think that would be helpful. It doesn't have to be this minute, but sure, put it on our list of things to learn about for sure.
Thank you.
Especially as we move back into the buildings, and because we've had a significant change in with the school resource officers, looking at how we're going to be intentional going forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I really would like to have a little deeper dive on this particular one, because I'm interested in some of the issues of privacy and such. So thank you.
Okay. Great. Moving on. I've lost my place again. We are at number 4, correct? The first reading. No action to rescind policy. Okay, yes, this would be to rescind policy 4314, notification of threats of violence or harm. That goes in tandem with adopting, it looks like, adopting the policy in number 2.
Yes.
Okay. Are there any questions, or is there any discussion?
This is Karen. When we do have the discussion on the previous policy, I think that we just how it integrates with this one to make sure I understand all the implications and changes we're making. That's all.
Okay. And then our 5th item is a first reading, no action to adopt revised policy 4215, use of tobacco, nicotine products, and delivery devices. Are there any questions or comments? I just have one comment. Oh, go ahead.
I just want to comment, since now in our state, marijuana is also legal the same way nicotine products are, should it be included in this policy?
I believe we have another policy that addresses marijuana. I'm going to
have to look.
Maybe ask for Dana or somebody that might know. I think we addressed that in a separate policy.
Greg, this
the
is
only
Debbie.
one I'm go ahead.
Go ahead, Debbie.
That's correct. In our drug-free policy, it makes a reference to marijuana.
That's what it was.
Okay.
Thank you.
I just have one comment about vaping, because from time to time we have gotten email, and there seemed to be a collection of emails that came right before the shutdown. And so we kind of put it on the back burner, but I wonder if we have a procedure, or we could develop one for, you know, kind of addressing this issue, which seems to be an issue across the high schools, and different high schools handle it differently, and how, you know, but I've received complaints. So do we have something that, you know, some guidance for principals on how to handle the vaping?
Yes, and I think but I think we certainly need to be more consistent in how we're handling vaping. I think so much of what schools are experiencing, and I know we have several principals that are on the call here or on the Zoom here, but I think schools are probably, that's one of the things that they've been dealing with most significantly, is just the amount of vaping that's happening on campus. And so I think, you know, looking at our student discipline policy, which 3241, and procedure, which talks about, you know, how we handle those kinds of offenses, you know, there is still some there is room for administrators to apply their judgment and discretion in terms of how they address those situations with students. And we've really moved away from, you know, a zero tolerance, you know, approach to these kinds of things, to really trying to make the consequence fit the particular student and the situation. So I mean, I certainly can understand that, you know, that maybe things are getting handled in different ways at different schools, but again, following the language of using judgment and discretion, you know, mitigating and aggravating circumstances, that language which is in our policy and procedure, we really do want schools to think about how to handle it in ways that are most appropriate for each student.
Yeah, okay. I guess the kinds of things I was hearing was, you know, bathrooms were not safe to be in.
Oh, sure.
So, and, you know, I know that some of the, only because my kids tell me these things, that you can even be vaping in class without anyone being able to see, because some of the products are so small.
So we brought the Snohomish County Health District out prior to closing, and we did parent information nights at each of our high schools on this topic, because and they brought examples of devices that you can purchase to use for vaping, and one was a hooded sweatshirt with the drawstrings, and one of the drawstrings was a vape pen, and it was, if you didn't know what you were looking for, it looked like the student was wearing a hooded sweatshirt. Another was an Apple Watch. It looked like an Apple Watch, but it was a vape pen. I mean, the ways that they're finding to disguise these things are just, you've got to have a PhD and, you know, in that kind of thing to try to keep up with it, because you're constantly chasing it. So it definitely is something that our schools were concerned about, though. And I know that we had a lot of conversations about the vaping pandemic, because it really truly was that. I use that language not lightly, but it's something that we have to continue to deal with. And I think especially as we come back to school, I think that's going to be something we're going to need to continue to deal with. But like I said, just continuing to try to find ways to educate and do everything we can do to try to stem the tide of vaping that's happening, because it's everywhere.
Thank you. Other comments or questions?
I wonder if this is something to have our student advisors weigh in on, if they have any comments.
Oh yeah, if they're still here.
Yeah, so I just wanted to add, like from an experience that I've had myself in the classroom. This was when I was in a freshman year, so 9th grade. I was in one of the art classes in high school, and I'd never been exposed to like vaping or weed or marijuana or anything like that. So it was interesting to me because the teacher who was teaching that class came up to me and said, "Do you know which way the student went?" And I asked, "Why? You know, what's wrong?" And he told me that student was smoking weed in the back of the classroom. And I was shocked because like vape has kind of become normalized, but smoking marijuana in class without anyone noticing, like I had never smelled it before, so I didn't recognize that scent. But I was just kind of appalled that I guess like they got away with that. So I think definitely like a way to make this a bit stricter would help, but I do understand that like it is really hard, especially hearing that like kids are being able to hide vape in like the drawstring of their sweatshirts and things like that. But also I think if we're allowing schools to have their own approach in terms of disciplining this, I feel like it should be even across the board in terms of how they handle each student, so that there isn't any question in terms of like racial bias or like in terms of gender or something like that, that someone else got in a way like a lighter sentence than another student with the same offense. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's people who are not exposed to it outside of school. It's at the point where it's very easily exposable. I mean, Mr. Schwab covered it pretty well. It's ridiculous how hidden and how with the times marketing has gotten for that, and just it's so easy to disguise. And for the past 3 years, being in a couple of classes where people would just leave under the pretense of going to the bathroom and come back, and you could tell something was wrong. And I think like the consistency across schools is definitely important, because yes, there's different situations where students are going through other things, and that's it should be dealt with accordingly. But then there's the whole consistency piece, like, okay, if I'm doing these are the consequences, and just something that is going to help kids not do it, knowing the effect that one time can have with the addiction process. And just maybe find, I know supports across the district for different things, like we have counselors for and just using those resources to kind of support students who have fallen into that trap, because I know that it is proven that it can be really hard to get out of that.
Any other comments or questions?
I'll just add on. I think the transition from middle school to high school is pretty shocking, because all of a sudden, you find out your closest friends could be doing drugs or something like that. And I think the scary thing is how popular it is. I mean, there's not such thing as someone not knowing someone who's done or does, something bad like that. But it's just so impossible to kind of regulate that. I mean, especially if it's happening in the bathrooms or things like that. I don't know how that can be prevented or slowed down in any way. So, yeah, but it is a problem.
Yeah, and I think it'd be great if teachers could somehow, like, I guess, learn a little bit more, like how to see the signs of students vaping, because I feel like other students definitely realize that their peers are like vaping or smoking more than teachers do, because even though like vaping scents, they aren't as noticeable as like weed or smoke or tobacco, but you can still like smell, like it's still pretty strong, but some teachers may not realize that as well as other students will. So I feel like that would be good to help.
Thank you. It's definitely an eye opener for someone in my generation to hear about this stuff that we didn't have. So, okay. Where are we? We are at the end of our items. So students, do you have any more comments and more general comments or concerns or questions or observations you'd like to make tonight? Let me go ahead and ask Badna if you'd like to make a comment.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Director Kadams for what she said regarding like assaults on campus and keeping students safe with bullying and things like that. I think that's really important to, in a way, like make it easier for the victim rather than forcing them to have to make a move just because of what someone else is doing towards them, because it's not their fault. Because they didn't do anything wrong. They shouldn't have to have a whole life change in addition to what they've already been suffering through. So I really appreciate what you did with mentioning those comments. So thanks.
Thank you. Kai?
I just wanted to say thanks to Harmony and everybody else working in the communications department. I think though this year has been brought with challenges, I think communication is something that has definitely been improved, and that's going really great. So thank you for that.
Isabella?
Okay, sorry. Can you hear me now? Okay, I loved all the presentations, very informational, and I really appreciate everyone working hard towards like bettering our situation. And also, I'd like to let you guys know that the radio show that I'm a part of in Spanish, we're doing our first live broadcast tomorrow. So the radio show is called ESD, Edmond School District Juventud Sin Fronteras, which in English means Students Without Borders. So yeah, if you'd like to listen in, it's at 5 p.m. tomorrow. And you can go online to mradiolive.com, which is the radio station that we're partnering with, that the district is partnering with. And also, we just created an Instagram page talking about social media, and it's also named ESD Juventud Sin Fronteras. So, thank you.
Oh, cool. Sorelia, are you still on with us?
Oh, yes.
Do you have any comments you'd like to make?
Not really. I think my fellow student advisors are said everything already, so.
Okay, thank you. And Ritika?
I guess it's communications news night. I am very proud to share that that MTHS was named the First Amendment Freedom Press Award yet again. This is the 8th time in a row for us, and 10th in a row, 10th overall. And even though this is kind of geared towards like student media relations with our school, we know that this effort goes across the district, and that we couldn't do this without the support of the school board and everyone throughout the district. So we're incredibly grateful, and we look forward to more support over the coming years, which also highlights the importance of the various different programs that we have throughout the district that are like not extracurriculars and things like that, because those extracurriculars have taught so much to students, and we've been able to do so much because of those extracurriculars. So, which is why I'm really excited about the in-person opportunities that are coming up, hopefully here soon, even at the secondary level. And that's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out as we bring more students in at the secondary level, slow, but hopefully sure and steady moving forward. And yeah, so very excited about the in-person opportunities, hopefully for the secondary level. I know how much sports have meant to people that are back into that, and just having the opportunity to go back in person like that, finding the equitable ways to make that happen for as many people as we can is definitely going to be important, and we need it. That's social emotional well-being. And one final thing, the conversation about our nicotine conversation we were having earlier, kind of just reminds me, like social emotional well-being and just all of that, just the importance of, yet again, communication and, for example, for peers to know like what to do if they're, and Kai mentioned this earlier, like we probably all know someone who's like doing it, but if there's a point when help is needed, that conversation and that social emotional well-being conversation to say, okay, this is what you should do if you have someone that's experiencing it, and just having even better abilities to go and report those and help with those would be definitely something that was on my radar. And yeah.
Oh, thank you. Next, we have our board member comments. Director Noble, do you have any comments tonight?
Yeah, I just was want to say I'm really super excited about the 22nd and our second graders coming back to school, finally having kids in our schools. And I want to mention last week I just happened by the Meadowdale playfields, and it was so refreshing. They were totally full. Every single field had a girls softball game going. Now, this is not, official school district sports, but these are school district students that are all out there, and now the fields can be full of kids playing. And we've been watching for the last year all our lovely play fields just being empty. So it was refreshing that now they're being used. That's my only comment.
Director Chase.
Thank you, Director Kilgore, and thank you for running an excellent meeting again this evening. It's very much appreciated, and I think that you're doing an excellent job as president, so I wanted to just be sure to thank you. And also for being the spokesperson with answering many of our emails that are coming in great volumes. It is with great pleasure that I just wanted to share that I was appointed to the WASDA Legislative Committee as a representative for District 1, which is pretty much from here up to Canada. And so thank you very much. I am thrilled to join the team. I would like to share that April Berg, or Novak, our new legislator from the Everett School District, was previously in this position, and she also served on the Edmonds School Board right when I was coming on. So I've been having a great time talking to her about this position and the legislation that she is bringing forth down in Olympia. So I'm very excited about this. And along with that, we do have, as a continuation of the legislative conference, our week in the, our meetings, Day on the Hill, which is going to be a week on the Hill where we meet with our legislators. And I shared with the board and our students that on this coming Monday, we have a number of meetings scheduled with our legislators. And there's some prep to do for that. Director Kilgore is going to be attending, but there's room for more. A number of the meetings are simultaneous. So we'll be running around trying to cover a number of meetings at the same time. And as you know, student voice is always very important in these things. So I'm going to invite students, if you're interested in attending, please email me. Most of the meetings are Monday, starting at 3. However, there's one at 10 a.m. And I would love to have you. Now, this is a sponsored event by WASDA, WASBO, and WASA. And so as that, we're going to be advocating on the shared priorities that we've talked about and adopted as our policy, which is basically budget stability, graduation flexibility, and student wellness. So that is going to be the focus for the Monday meetings. However, there will be ample opportunity for additional meetings with our legislators if this time on Monday doesn't work. And I have just forwarded and shared some updated talking points and information. Today is the cutoff for the House of Origin in Olympia. So tomorrow we should have a whole bunch of updates on what bills are still moving forward. And I will share that as soon as I have it. That's it for now.
Director, okay. Thank you. Director Kadams.
I want to thank all the staff that provided the updates. Lydia, you always do a great job with the financial reports. Harmony, it was wonderful hearing all the communication update. And on the reentry, I want to say, I think what I'm most excited about is the fact that teachers have been moved up on the vaccination priority list, and that I know the district is working hard with Snohomish County and the other partners to get our teachers vaccinated as soon as possible, because getting our kids back is dependent on our teachers feeling safe and being able to be in a good environment where adults feel safe and are not going to be transmitters. So I'm very excited about that. And I want to pre-thank all the secondary principals who have made it all the way through this meeting in order to have a discussion topic with us about the interventions that they're doing at high schools in order to help the kids who are clearly not making the grades that they should be making. And so this is kind of a pre-thank you because you're kind of at the end of the meeting, but I know you've been here the whole time. So we're looking forward to that. We're not going to bed yet. So thanks to everybody.
Thank you. I have just a couple things. There was a public comment from Deborah Comfort, who is a teacher at, I think she's still at Linwood Elementary. And she was talking about our bus system. And she's absolutely right. And it's something that that I had, as a parent, had observed that the consequences of being a late start school are significant. And we were at a late start school, and just trying to, I mean, you imagine getting out of elementary school at 3:50 and rushing to the next thing if it's possible. There were certainly opportunities that were absolutely not available to kids at that school. After school enrichment opportunities simply weren't available. So it was something that I noticed at the time, and it did have real consequences. And she's also right that if you look at, you know, that there's a little bit of a potentially an inequity that's systemic, that needs to be addressed. And I think that it also ties in with, you know, the sticky problem we have of not being able to adjust bell schedules for our high school students, which is something that I'd like to take up as soon as we come back from the pandemic and we can get our feet back under us. I still think that's a priority issue. That we have not been able to adjust bell schedules to meet the needs of our students. And so, and it had primarily had to do with transportation. I know there were some other factors involved in that decision, but I'd like to see us revisit that problem in the future. So anyway, I see that Debbie has dropped off the call. But I'll definitely mention to her that I did consider her comments. And just thank you everyone for all the work that you're putting in. I am just thrilled to see any students coming back. I'm thrilled to see the hubs getting the use, you know, increased use, and I hope that we will always look to see how we can, you know, if there's demand, to see how we can meet it this year for those hubs, expanding hours, expanding facilities, thinking outside the box to meet that need. And just want to reiterate, you know, that I hope that we can bring back more students this year. I was surprised to see the door sort of close, and I think I'm joined by some, if not all, board members in hoping that we could do that, to bring more grade bands back by the end of the year. And as a consensus, we expect that schools will be open to all students. The doors will be open, not just the computers, to all students in the fall. And so that is our goal. It may not look the way that we, the good old way that we've come to appreciate so much, but that's what we are directing the district to point towards, is getting all students back in the fall. And with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Balderas.
Thank you. And I'll be quick because I know we have more presentations tonight. Again, as I reflect back during a year, this has been almost a year since we've been closed due to this global pandemic. It's almost our anniversary since we've been closed. And I was in a different state, different district when we shut down. And it was just going to be an extended school year in Oregon, or an extended spring break, because our spring break's a little earlier in Oregon. So it's going to be extended. Talk to the governor's office. Hey, just give it a couple of weeks. We'll be out of this. Well, a couple of weeks turns into a whole year. We've been in this a whole year. And I just want to really appreciate the resiliency of our students, of our educators, of our community as we continue to work through this. So again, we see kind of the light at the end of the tunnel with more vaccinations being available, and continue to be more available to more folks, and hopefully have a vaccine here for students in the late summer, fall. Our hope. That's our hope. Again, but just want to really just appreciate the resiliency of everybody. No one signed up to do this, and we're doing it. And like I told the board previously, we're doing the best job we've ever done during a pandemic, and we'll get through this, because again, we are resilient, and we'll be better because of it. We will be better because of it, and I view everything as an opportunity. And with technology, we just need to get out of this right now and make sure that we bring our kids back. As the board has stated, our goal is to bring our kids back in the fall. We'll have our kids back in some format. That format's really dependent on the restrictions from the Department of Health. And I think that's what people sometimes forget, is we're under restrictions in terms of how many kids we can have right now. There's a square footage situation where that's a requirement right now for schools. That's why you don't have everybody back right now. And hopefully, again, if everybody's vaccinated, that kind of takes care of itself. But if not, we'll follow the restrictions that are imposed on us through the Department of Health, and also the guidelines and requirements from labor and industry, as we have been. So, but our goal is to bring our kids back. Our kids need to be back in some format, K-12 in the fall. And we will work very, very hard to make sure that at the beginning of the year, we're able to do that. So again, I want to thank everybody for their patience as we work through this, and for your board, for your vision, and for your comments and your guidance. So thank you. I think you're muted, Deborah.
I always forget. You never know when my kid is going to start practicing his trumpet again. So I always mute myself. Yeah, we have a couple of discussion topics tonight. The first is high school grades for semester 1. Mr. Schwab.
Thank you. And very quickly here, I'm going to hand it over to our high school principals who are going to join us. But I wanted to start by framing really quickly the conversation. At last week's study session, we reviewed semester 1 grades, and we learned that 18% of our secondary students earned at least one NC in first semester. So tonight, what we hope to do is answer the question, what is being done at each of our high schools to support the students in recovering these NC grades? So we have administrators from each of our high schools here tonight to speak to the specific interventions they're providing at their school to help support students in their efforts to change these NC grades to passing grades. So with that, I'm going to ask Allison Larson if she would mind introducing herself and talking about Evans Woodway High School.
Hi, my name is Allison Larson, and I'm principal at Edmonds Woodway High School. And as with the school board, we share your concerns about our students who have earned NC grades for our first semester. So we have several things that we do. Some things we think about as trying to prevent the NC grades or trying to stop them from happening by the end of the semester. And then other things are how do we remediate them afterwards. So some things that we've been doing all year is we really emphasize our teachers contacting their students directly and the families directly by email and phone if they can't get in contact with students by Zoom. Inviting students personally to come to their Zoom office hours to talk to them about how they can catch up on their work, how they can, what is their feedback on their learning, and how they can improve. We find that our students really respond best to the teacher directly when the teacher's providing them support. So we really emphasize that first. And then we've implemented a check and connect program where we've identified staff members that have a specific set of students that they check in with that have a certain number of NC grades and talk to the students about how to manage themselves as a student well, how do I set short-term goals and how do I achieve those goals? And then they celebrate with the students when they do. And so we have that going for many of our students. We offer peer tutoring after school, a peer writing center after school, and then we have some of our paraeducators providing math and science tutoring sessions for our students in greatest need. We held in the fall and we plan to in the spring also a family teacher conference. Zoom makes that a little easier at the high school level to do that, where we try to target families that we really want to get a hold of and give them some appointments with teachers so they can talk to teachers one-on-one. So that was, we got positive feedback about that in the fall. We're going to do that in the spring again. And then we have talked about as a staff, and staff have provided alternate assignments for students during class for the classes they're enrolled in to measure proficiency, giving them one assignment maybe to make up for missing several assignments so they could still measure their learning and help the student move forward. We've had staff collaboration around SEL classroom strategies they try to use daily. We've talked about how we can engage students in class, turning on their cameras and really wanting to participate in class, but also how to, we've talked about how to get students more engaged in using the office hours as a tool to get help with their schoolwork. And then of course, at the semester, we've identified and started implementing independent study for students who have in NC at the first semester. And at Edmonds Woodway, we have many year-long classes. So many of our students are with the same teachers through the entire school year, and they don't change that semester. We do have some classes that do change, but most don't. And then we've also talked about using the backfill credits, where if a student passes their second semester class, then that grade is also backfilled for the first semester class. And those two things are things that are happening throughout our district. And Greg, I think back to you. That's what I have to share.
All right, we get to say that a lot in this day and age, don't we?
Yes.
All right, I want to ask Mike Piper if you would mind jumping on to talk about Linwood High School.
Mike Piper over at Linwood High School. What you heard from Edmonds Woodway is very similar to what's happening at Linwood High. One thing that we've noticed, and we've been doing this all year, we have teachers and an engagement team and counselors. We're all trying to reach out and connect with our students who are not engaging, or we're just concerned about, or we're not seeing the academic progress that we're hoping for. But students do have choice in how they're going to make up their NC. And right now the backfill is by and large the most popular choice when we're having these conversations with students on how they want to attack making up their NC. And really, from the student perspective, I have two choices. I can really get going in my class right now, and that grade second semester will be the same as first semester, or I can go back and try to do work for first semester and while trying to tackle second semester. So students that are in the situation, what we're worried about is that history is going to repeat itself. So what we've been doing with these students that are really banking on the backfill is trying to sit down and have motivational interviewing and conversations, just sitting down talking about what happened last semester, what barrier was in the way, what support is needed, what can we do to help so that we get a different outcome this semester. So that's probably the biggest work that we're doing right now in trying to support our students. But there's also students that are taking independent studies or having an arrangement with the teacher to make up a class. We have CLIP, which is a popular option at Linwood High School for students to go through several classes in one semester. And it's not systemic yet, but we're trying to build what we call competency-based assignments or exams. And so hopefully second semester goes well, but we know there's going to be situations where there's students that were hoping for that backfill but got another NC again. What we're trying to do is by department and by prep, design a competency-based assignment or an exam that we can give to a student so they don't have to go through an entire semester trying to recover the credit, that we can sit down, teach them to learn what they need to do, they can demonstrate it, and we can award them the credit. And we're building that right now as a system. We also have, study halls happening. We have a virtual study hall that we have student tutors helping and assisting with, and those are also going to roll into our hubs that are happening. And we're designing hubs and recruiting students into our hubs right now to try to help students as well. The quick overview for Linwood High School. Back to you, Greg.
Thank you, Mike. All right, and Deanne Anguiano from Meadowdale High School, could you please join us and talk about Meadowdale?
Good evening. Hi, I'm Deanne Anguiano. I'm assistant principal at Meadowdale High School. Our principal had multiple things to do tonight, so I'm helping him out by being here. In responding to the prompt where we filled this out, we were primarily letting you guys know what we're doing for the NCs, and we do have other things in place to help prevent NCs or supporting kids that are really struggling. But going over this slide, we're allowing kids to complete work from first semester, and it's kind of like an individual contract with teachers. So like say our chef teacher is allowing kids to demonstrate a couple of things in order to show that they have mastered enough of the class that they can give them a grade. The second thing, there's backfilling NC grades with a letter grade obtained in the next course. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at third quarter and try to figure out if the student is passing at that point in time. We'll go ahead and backfill the grade from first semester with the third quarter grade. And then we're going to check again if they're not passing at third quarter. We're going to check again at the end of the semester. But our goal is to try to get the students to, try to demonstrate that they're mastering the content so that we can give them a backfill grade for first semester, and then they can move forward from there. The third thing, there's credit recovery option. We have joined with BYU this year, and we're using their credit recovery online curriculum. And we have students in two credit recovery classes, as well as we have an option for after school. We have somebody up here on monitoring students progressing through the credit recovery curriculum from BYU. The fourth bullet there is an option would be to repeat the course the following term or year, depending on how much class they missed first semester. The fifth one, we have some opportunities, and we'd like to develop this a little bit further, but we do have some opportunities where students were able to take like the first semester final to demonstrate that they had the content and understood the content so that they could go forward. I think that's something that we might want to develop a little bit further. And then the last thing would be to recommend that they go to a summer school. And these aren't really in prioritized order. They're just the options that are available. We have counselors meeting with families. I was with counselor today, working with the family as to what they're going to be able to do and their options. So the students really trying to get third quarter grades up so that he can backfill, that kind of thing. So that we're kind of individualizing each situation to be able to provide intervention along the way. Our teachers are encouraged to meet with the students if it's possible, talk to the families if possible, and if things aren't working, then we have a referral form and the referral is to the Maverick and engagement team. And what that is some staff members that we have on the engagement team. They will reach out to those students and those families, and they're persistent about doing that and finding out why the student either is logging on and not doing anything, or not coming to class, or not turning in homework, whatever it is. Sometimes they can fix it. Internet connections are bad. They don't have their materials. Something is weird, you know, so that sometimes it's a quick fix. If it's not a quick fix, or if it's they're having struggles reaching those families, then we have another team. It's called our student intervention team. And this is kind of a tier 2 intervention where the members of the intervention team will look at each student and reach out to those families and try to find a situation or a plan for that student so that they can overcome whatever it is that's getting in the way of their learning. And then if there's further issues that the intervention team can't support, we have a student care team that will wrap around a student with whatever supports they need, if it's counseling or other things. So those are the kind of the 3 tiers that we have for them. We do have virtual peer tutoring, and I was told today we have tutors in 4 different languages as well as English, and that's available after school during our office hours. And then we also have pairs that man our math and EL tutoring opportunities. And so we're trying to meet with each student as we go along to be able to meet their needs. We're continuing. It's an ongoing effort, but that's what we're trying to do so far. Thank you. Back to you, Greg.
All right, I want to have Greg Schellenberg from LA Terrace High School join us.
Hey, thanks, Greg. And firstly, let's acknowledge the fine work done by the Mount Lake Terrace Hawk students here present tonight. So Bonda, Kai, Ratika, it's great to see you in action. Enjoyed it tonight. I think all of us at the high school level, we're working with lists upon lists upon lists of students. And so when we connect with the families through all the means that have been mentioned tonight, we're looking to encourage, to come up with a plan. But I think the most success is when we're able to have some connection and some accountability. So just the unique things that I could mention from Mount Lake Terrace that are at our place, when we have the independent study option, we have one person, our SYNC, our student intervention coordinator. She has coordinated all of the independent studies to be centralized through her. So she reaches out to the students weekly. She has some of the students that join her or join into after school or before school study sessions. And she's been able to lead a number of them through towards their completing their independent studies. So that's been great. We have during the advisory time, we have 5 paraeducators that have set up advisory classes with 15 kids, and this has been 9 through 12, but recommendations from our student support team. And they're just connecting on a daily basis. How's it going? How can I help? What supports do you need? Kind of the check and connect model that we heard earlier. Our Study Hawks program, which is something we do in person, but that's been ongoing most of this year in the morning before Zoom classes start, and it wasn't wildly popular, but we've been able to in the last few months get that staffed and going in the afternoon. And so at that, there's some peer tutoring. There's students that are volunteering to tutor and paraeducators that are available for tutoring as well. And that is what is unique to Mount Lake Terrace. Otherwise, I could say ditto from what a lot of the previous schools have said. So, thanks, Greg. Back to you.
Thank you. Andrea Hillman from Scarborough Lake.
Thank you. I think I would say the same thing Greg just said. Our
system of mitigating the NCs is a combination of being proactive and reactive, and we have many of the same supports set up. I might highlight that probably our most effective is the third bullet there, or second and third bullet. And I know that other schools are doing this too, but when our SSAs or other staff can go and just reach out to the students, sometimes that even leads to having a wraparound meeting with counselors, admin, teachers. But like Piper said, you know, then we're able to do some of that motivational interviewing and help kids. Sometimes they don't even know that there are these options for them. So I would say also part of what we do is just communicate to the students that they do have this opportunity to retrieve the credit that maybe they didn't earn in the prior term. So I think you can read that whole list there, but it's very, very similar to what everyone else says. And we are very excited to offer some more expanded in-person opportunities for students coming up. We've had our hub running for McKinney-Vento students since January 19th, and they're adorable because they just keep trying to have us approve friends of theirs to come. So we are looking forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Christy Frary from eLearning.
Well, I would love to be able to say ditto to a lot of that. Backfill is and credit recovery are kind of our big options that we use for working with our I's and our NCs. We've been also doing some reinstating in courses. So for us, since with our online curriculum, it doesn't quite look the same for as what it would look like in another classroom, but we're able to reinstate, and teachers are able to work with students on the individual pieces that they had missed maybe from the first semester as they come into the second semester. One of the things that we've really pushed this year is setting up individual appointments with students. The teachers have been using a app called Calendly. I know some other folks in the district are using this also, and students are really enjoying that. They're using that heavily to make one-on-one appointments to work with teachers. Sometimes they're finding that it's easier to ask the questions that they need when they can work one-on-one rather than trying to ask their questions in a classroom full of other students. We've created this year, my teachers have created credit recovery I and C recovery courses. These are 6-week courses where the teachers the students are taking an assessment of what standards have they already met, and then the teacher is able to change the course and turn on and off the parts of the curriculum that the student still needs to get for that. We've kind of been playing with the timeline for that throughout the year. And we've come to 6 weeks most recently because we found students sometimes they'd get into these long, even quarter-long credit recovery courses, and they would flounder. They would think, oh, I've got all the time in the world, and then they wouldn't do it. And then they'd get to the end and realize, oh, I'm out of time. So we decided 6-week credit recovery course options, and the students have really been taking to those courses. We're seeing a lot more success now with our students as they're approaching those. And then allowing students to show mastery using alternative assignments, which is similar to what we're hearing from a lot of our other schools. And because we're an alternative learning experience school, we do have our monthly evaluation and intervention process. That part of that process is guiding students in their progress and making sure that they're maintaining their progress throughout the year.
Thanks, Christy. And finally, Scott Mock from Edmonds Heights.
Hello, everybody. It's good to see you. First of all, as you probably can remember, not unlike e-learning, each of our students is on a written student learning plans, individualizes everything that they do. And so when I use the acronym WSLP, you'll kind of know what that means. So the other feature of Edmonds Heights that I want to say before I start is we don't give grades. And so we just give credit or no credit. And that gives us a lot of opportunities. So this year, one of the things that we did was we gave more incomplete than partial credits when we needed to. So, and that was an option that the students and the teachers took on a case-by-case basis. So first of all, as Chrissy said, our WSLPs are evaluated monthly, and each class is evaluated monthly with a report that goes home, and then evaluation of the overall progress of the whole plan, and that's kindergarten through 12th grade. If no progress is made in a month in the learning plan, then an intervention plan is put in place by law, and that the student has to meet with the advisor about that. And one of 5 interventions has to be put in place. So either a change in the WSLP, a change in the amount of time and instructions happening, something to that effect. We meet as a staff monthly as a secondary team and an elementary team with our counselors about students of concern. So whether that's a straight academic issue, student isn't attending, or they're having trouble getting work done, they're not making a lot of progress, whatever that might be, we meet around that and we brainstorm solutions in the class. But then we also think about what we're going to do to intervene as follow-up. So the guidance team, which is the counselor, the school nurse, myself, the student intervention coordinator, sort of follow up with whatever the need is in the student of concern meeting. Sometimes the learning plan is modified as we go, and that gives us a lot of flexibility. So if a learning plan is just too much for a student to get, like, for example, the student's taking 6 classes, but really they should only be taking 4 at a time, then we can modify the learning plan so that it can speed up each of those classes. So over time, they still graduate on time, but they just do fewer at a time. So that's one of the beauties of ALE and has been historically. Students attend office hours and study labs pretty regularly when we can get them to, but I'm sure, like my colleagues in the high schools, that can be a challenge as well. And lastly, we will go ahead and program a paraeducator to do some tutoring if we need to. Back to you, Greg.
Thank you. I love hearing that. That's so cool. So I appreciate each of our principals being here tonight, and I wanted to just throw it open for questions from the board.
Greg, it's...
Oh, go ahead, Nancy.
Oh, okay. So this was great hearing from all the principals and seeing all you wonderful people who are working so hard to try to help our kids make it through this difficult time. What I found interesting, I mean, obviously there are a lot of common strategies that the schools are using, but one that I wanted to focus on is I see that several of you are talking about developing or using competency-based assignments or exams. And I'm wondering, to what extent is it possible for the district to develop a district-wide system of this rather than each school having to reinvent the wheel? And who is it who's going to vet these to make sure that what one school in a course that is basically the same, let's say Algebra 1, is using the same level of competency and expectation as another school for Algebra 1 and its call credit? I realize that every course is different anyway based on the teachers, but that being said, if we're using a competency-based approach for some, it seems like there would be, certainly saving the efforts across all these different districts, and a benefit of having expectations be consistent across schools, as well as sort of making it efficient. So that's sort of one area. I don't know that there's an answer to that now, and maybe that's work of student learning that they're doing, but it would be of interest, I think, for us as a district to think about that. The other thing that I'm wondering about is the credit recovery strategies so some of you are using the CLIP model, somebody's using BYU. Again, is there some sort of efficiency in having a district-wide approach to credit recovery? Is there data to show that some of this is better than others? You know, are we just all independent high schools in the district? I know it's a question that is been discussed over the decades that I worked in the district, as well as now. But you know, thinking from a district perspective, since everybody's trying to help kids as much as possible, it seems like using our resources in a concerted, systematic way on the obvious interventions and proactive strategies that we want to use would require some cost-effective and consistency across schools for the district.
Maybe I'll tackle that one because I think I mean, it's a great question, Nancy. And I think what I would say is that, you know, the credit retrieval courses that, for example, the ones that Christy spoke about through e-learning are courses that are open to any student in the district, not just e-learning students. So any student has access to those. And actually those are courses that were developed for that specific purpose so that there was some consistency. But there's also this tyranny of the urgent that we're all operating under right now, which is, you know, we've got kids and we've got some immediate needs. And I think, you know, the schools are also you know, figuring out, you know, ways that they can get kids access to credits. Like BYU Independent Study is a nationally recognized program that offers high school courses, and it's another avenue, another tool that we have that we can use to help support students. So it's really about the package that we're trying to put together. But I don't disagree that at some point we absolutely need to be systemic about this. But we're right now, I think we're fighting the fire, and but not to say that we don't. At some point, when we get through this fire, we can say, okay, what are the things that we need to have in place? But those credit retrieval courses are things that I think are a thing that are pretty systemic, that any student in any high school can access through e-learning. So that's just one example. And you know, the competency-based assessment question is absolutely one that, you know, has just kind of surfaced, and it's been one that has kind of organically happened at each of our schools. But I think there's room in there for us to work with student learning to develop some consistent competency-based assessments across all schools so that we're all assessing the same thing. Because I agree that we need to have that consistency as well.
So that's really good to hear that the credit recovery options that are available at one school are available at all schools. I'm wondering, how are kids communicated about all of these various options and how the ease to access them in terms of if something works better for one than another, that they're all available to them?
I can address how we do it at Meadowdale. Our counselors are connected with the kids, and depending on what topics and how many topics they need, they can go a certain direction. If we've got a clip packet that they can take and do, and they want the physical packet, that would be their best situation. If they have several classes they need to make up, our BYU opportunity allows us to have one fee for 12 months of usage, and they can take as many credit recovery courses as they want. So it kind of depends on each individual student, and the counselors work with them.
And I'll share too that for Christy Frary, I know our district counselors meet every month. So all of our secondary counselors meet monthly. Mark Madison facilitates that meeting, and they have been, Christy presented to them on the credit retrieval courses as an option for students. So every counselor had that information and knew how to get their students into it. So there's a district process for how kids get into those courses.
Thank you. And thank you for what everybody's doing to help these kids.
Yeah, I had a question on the competency or mastery-based approach, which is something I totally agree with, but it really rears lots of questions about it. First of all, have you had much pushback from staff and teachers who have traditionally, felt that there was more components to passing a course than simply mastering the ELERs or the standards, such as class participation, getting things done on time. Other things have always gone into the grade. So teachers that have been grading in using that methodology, have you had any pushback from them as to giving credit to their students, maybe ones that didn't pass their courses, simply for passing a mastery exam?
Well, we started a similar thing to this years ago. At Lima, we called it Summer Slam, which was for our seniors that didn't graduate. We're just short a couple of credits and had some classes to finish up. Basically, what was happening was the teachers were designing a competency-based assignment or final culminating activity to do, but the students would still come on campus and finish, and then we would graduate them. The success of that, I think, was really important to have. One, there's a certificated teacher of record grading the work. It's not being graded by an administrator or counselor somewhere else. And then also the teachers were involved in the design of the assessment. I think if you have those things happening, which I think it's really important, you know, Nancy, to your question involving student learning and collaboration across the system, that's one of the challenges, which is we can't design this just in a pocket somewhere. It has to really be thoughtfully designed throughout the whole system and how you involve teachers in that work. But I think if we do it that way, we're not going to run into the challenges of pushback that we might expect. And the way I've always communicated it with staff is we're not, you know, giving the student an A. We're saying what are the essential things that a student needs to say that they have demonstrated learning for this course, and we are passing them, saying that they have met those core. So thinking of it that way versus what is, you know, the grade or the effort that they put in some of those conversations that happen, but just bringing it back to what is the essential demonstration of learning that we want to see for this course. And then the teachers answer that question through the competency-based assignment that we create.
Yeah, I can just see as more students become aware that they can get credit for a course, even if it's just a pass instead of an A, based upon a competency-based or mastery-based assessment, then a student could conceivably, you know, coast through a course and, you know, do very poorly on most of the exams throughout the course, and then suddenly figure out he needs to know this, and then you get an A on the final and say, yeah, I know I did bad all through the first 89 days of the semester, but on the 90th day, I passed your final exam, so you need to give me a pass or maybe even give me an A because I did really good on the final. And I can see that students kind of maybe looking at that attitude in the future when they realize that mastery-based options are available.
I think perhaps the future is mastery-based, though. It's what you know and not participation or how much homework you did. But if you can demonstrate that you know the topic, that's the future of schooling, I think.
Other questions for our principals?
This is Karen. I really appreciate the overview. And so I'll be interested to see how this progresses throughout the rest of the year. Because, you know, as you know, graduation comes up, and I can imagine that there'll be extra work for you to make sure that we're accessing all the students. And I really appreciated the individual attention that you all mentioned in each of the buildings and programs. And so I really appreciate this update.
And I should add, the other thing that we have at our disposal is the passage of the credit waiver, the emergency credit waiver that was just passed, and we're expecting the rules from the State Board of Education this week on how we implement that credit waiver. But I believe that's gonna significantly help us as well.
I'd love to see how that actually impacts our district. Because we were really pushing that in the education committee. So
Yeah, we're excited.
I just think this is such a great move forward. I really love all the options the high schools have put together, and in some ways, I think this distance learning COVID crisis has forced us to come up with some really innovative ways for credit recovery and again competency-based credit. And I think it's going to be just a real benefit to us when we have kids coming back full time, that we have these now new options in place. And I just think it's great for the kids and great for our system.
I'm wondering if our student advisors who are still on have any comments. My guess is you guys are probably not credit deficient. Just by listening to you, I think you're on top of everything, but I'm wondering if you have input from your student perspective.
Yeah, sure. I have a few friends that are currently doing the, I forgot what it was called, the back something credit recovery where they use.
Backfill?
Yeah, exactly. I have a few friends that are doing that, and so far it seems like it's going well. So that's good to hear, and hopefully they can maintain good grades this semester.
Yeah, huge thanks to the principals. Oh my gosh, I know how difficult a task this is. I think more on the from what I've heard from students who do have NCs, there's been a few who definitely have had communication come their way, but then there are a few who haven't. So I think with anything, there's a little bit of work that needs to go into that with teachers reaching out with so much going on right now. But overall, just the things that are in place, continuing second semester and getting good grades like that, I've heard good things about that, because if they can get it together second semester, then that's good. Appreciate the work that's gone in.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I'm very happy that this is really saving the students with NCs, but I'm curious, does it also apply to students that are have passed classes but maybe still want to improve their GPA?
That's a conversation we need to have as a principal group. I know that there's been some discussion, and we have a conversation to discuss that as an option. I think the logic, applies that if a student got an NC and then earned a higher grade for second semester, and that grade backfilled, the same logic should apply for a student who maybe got a D, but then all of a sudden, their academic fires got lit, and their second semester they really turned it on and got an A. Then I think we should take a look at, acknowledging that student's hard work and the fact they turn things around. So that's a conversation we need to have, and we will be talking about it very, very shortly.
Yeah, thank you. Because I just want to add that all of the students in advanced classes or students in advanced classes right now, this is very difficult for them too. And it is obviously difficult for every student. But I feel like those students sometimes, if they get a B, 1B, and that can be really hard for them, even though it's not a failing grade. So, and I know that it's just been stressful for a lot of my peers as well.
Can I add one thing? So this conversation about competency-based grading is happening around the state. And just one thing I'd like to say about that is it's being framed as culturally responsive practice. So as we start, and my colleagues and I have been talking about this as well, and we're framing it that way. So that might be one way to start thinking about this, that it's just part of what we're doing as we become an anti-racist district.
All right. Well, if there aren't any more questions, I think I'll let our high school principals go for the evening.
Thank you so much for waiting for us.
Thank you.
And for your hard work.
Good to see you. So long.
Thank you for arranging this, Greg.
Of course.
This was really helpful and informative. So we have one more discussion topic, military recruiting in schools. I think that's you, Greg, again.
So I guess I want to know, are there specific questions about this topic? I know we do, so maybe to start, we have military recruiters do have access at our high schools. They're allowed to come once a month. We have pretty strict guidelines set up for them as far as what they can and can't do. For example, they're allowed to set up, when we're in session, they're allowed to set up an information table, and they're allowed to have students approach them, but they cannot go out into the crowd, for example, and pull students out of the crowd. We put it into a lot of the things that they used to do, like they would bring their chin-up bar in and have chin-up contests and push-up contests and give away their military, their Army, lanyards and the little Army footballs and those kinds of things. Which I think if you ask any high school principal drove you nuts, because then they would be thrown across the cafeteria for the rest of the day. But we do have, those recruiters that do have access to our schools. And again, they're allowed to come in once a month to do for purposes of disseminating information. We've had a couple of instances that we have had to follow up with recruiters who have crossed lines that we felt were inappropriate, and usually what that involves is a call to their commanding officer at the recruiting station to say, here's what happened with this particular officer, and that person is usually not allowed back into a school. We do. I think we have a fairly good relationship with our armed forces recruiters in the area, and so I think that's a little bit about that. And we do have the federal law, which requires us to release information, but our families do have the opportunity to opt out if they choose not to have their names included in directory information. So those are all things that we're required to comply with. So that's a little bit about the process of military recruiters in schools. Are there questions I can answer?
I think what prompted this when it first came up that we were talking about it was that kids were getting emails that were recruiting them and offering them things and whatever. And so I'm wondering, does the school district release kids' email addresses? Is this part of what you said the parent would have to say, I don't want my kids' information to be, they would have to specifically say, I don't want my kids' information to be shared. And if they don't say that, it will be shared?
Yes, it's part of the information. The opt-out, that's part of the information that when we do directory information, that's part of what's released.
And is that required by law to do an opt-out versus an opt-in?
That part I don't know. I think we choose to do an opt-out as opposed to an opt-in, and that's just how we've operated as long as I've been in the district with regard to that directory information piece.
Who would make that decision?
I believe you all would.
I wonder if we could revisit that.
What we can do, Director Kadams, is check in terms of what legally we have to do. I know there's very specific language regarding what we have to do. For example, a lot of our kids that are high school seniors maybe are 18 already. So there's just certain things maybe we can get back more information. I know that there's a requirement that the kids also have to do when they turn a certain age as well.
I can recall, it was several years ago, Greg, when we went through this and put in the new restrictions, the once a month thing, because I remember all the problems that did have before that. It was kind of out of control. And this was a big subject that came up. And as I recall, one of the issues on it was if you have it as an opt-in, then many of the students that are probably most likely to benefit from joining the military are the ones that may not have known even to opt in to get the information. So that was certainly a consideration of the board, 5 or 6 years ago, whenever we went through this.
Yeah.
I would be interested in having a further discussion once we get some information, because parents have been reaching out asking how they can opt out. So I think it may be something that we need to make a little bit more apparent, and maybe information about the release of directory information in general. Yeah, because I remember that I was looking around for the information on the opt-out for someone, and it wasn't super easy to find, but I think as we're evaluating some of our communications, I think we can put this in to the mix of, want to make sure that it's accessible and transparent, and everyone has knowledge of what it is that releasing for the directory is, and what the military recruitment is. So I think it would benefit from added as a study session to one of our study sessions.
We can definitely do that.
I'm curious from our student advisors. I think y'all are seniors, is that right? Have you gotten, first of all, do you know whether or not you've opted in or opted out, and if you've had recruitment from military people?
I'm assuming I opted out because I'm not getting any emails or stuff like that. And no, nothing through my email virtually. I have had some recruiters try to contact our school Instagram account to get us to maybe promote something, but other than that, no, I don't think so.
So I also, as a Running Start student, I get emails from recruiters through the college. So I'm not sure if I receive any through like the Edmond School District, but I know for a fact, like in like our weekly highlights, we do get information about that from the career and college services. But I do remember getting a couple of emails from recruiters, but there wasn't really a button like unsubscribe or opt out or anything like that usually like appears at the bottom of email. So I just stopped receiving them. So I assumed I opted out, but it wasn't that clear.
Yeah, I haven't received. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No,
Okay.
finish.
Yeah, I'm a junior, but I haven't received anything either.
Greg, if once the recruiters, when they email the students, that's outside of our ecosystem, is it?
Yes.
Okay. And so
even if they used the district, the kid's district email?
They use a district email, but if they email their personal email address, that's if a student's personal email address is included in their directory information, then that falls outside of our ability to manage it. But with our district email addresses, we do have that ability.
And one other question, during the pandemic closure, have we provided them any systemic opportunities to recruit? Like, I guess they contacted Kai, but are they included in any kind of regular basis in our news, our e-news, or anything like that?
Not that I know of, no.
Sounds like we need a fact finding so we can answer all our questions.
Just curious. Also, what are, we do have a legal obligation. I don't think this is necessarily something that we should be protecting students from exactly. It's just looking at what, what are the opportunities and what we most responsibly can do to make sure that the information gets to the right students. Okay. Anything else for tonight? You sure you don't want to stay here till 10? Thank you so much for everything and for hanging in for the rest of the entire evening. Have a great week. Meeting adjourned.